Episode number 426, Massive Improvement. Astrid knew that if she were to take Kyne's hand after his remark, people would also become angry with her, but she had long stopped caring about what others say, and with a smile, she followed the young man. After the events with Marin, everybody knew better than to mess with Kyne, so no one intervened as they saw the duo leave the hall. The Scarlet King and Astrid returned to the main plaza, and they looked at each other before silently nodding and calmly walking to the young woman's home instead of using the teleportation formation. As soon as they moved away from the people, the Scarlet King waved his hand, showing a sphere with a 4 revolution flame.
It took me nearly a month, but I was already able to advance beyond a 3 revolution flame. I have an 80% success rate with body enhancement.
Astrid's eyes immediately glowed with excitement as she opened her golden book to review the information regarding 4 revolution refinements. Her eyes showed an evident wonder as she stared at the Scarlet King.
You became a Grand Tribulation enhancement rank in less than a month. According to the author's notes, it normally took a great genius not less than a year to reach that level. You are too fast.
The Scarlet King only smiled at the young woman and did not offer any comment. After all, the assistance of the modules to his talent had always been above the level of divine, and granted him an innate talent that was simply unique. Actually, the Scarlet King was sure that his talent would rise even higher once he mastered the second level of the flow, since it would allow him to perceive and predict the trends and vibrations of energy patterns. Stay connected with FreeWeb Novel.
I am happy to give you refinement flames from 1 to 4 revolutions, so you can study them if you could hand me the golden book again. I need to look through the process to go to the 9 revolution and then make my way to the 10 revolution.
Astrid stared at the Scarlet King for a moment as she heard those words. The man was not after her company, but the golden book. She did not have a problem with it and was happy that he was honest and did not try to get the information through deception.
What do you say if we analyze the information together? Due to my condition, I might not be able to create refinement flames, but I have been reading this book and analyzing its formulations for several years. I am sure I can be of help.
The Scarlet King stared at the young woman for a moment before softly nodding. He could not force her to hand over the golden book, so there was no other choice.
It is fine.
As soon as Astrid heard that, she smiled and opened the golden book on the page related to the creation of refinement flames from 4 to 9 revolutions, along with the formulas and advice on how to process.
To refine and condensate the life wave into a refinement flame, you always had to perform a chemical reduction by a factor of 9, but I have come to the conclusion that you could improve your proficiency by saturating the life wave before the ignition even starts.
The Scarlet King's eyes slightly widened as he heard the words of the young Atrox woman. He had prepared to divide his mind so he could focus on the book while doing some idle chat with Astrid, but the alteration she just professed made perfect sense. Not wasting time, the Scarlet King took out a 4 revolution flame and began to inject life wave into it, following Astrid's advice by performing the saturation for the energy before the ignition even started. A flash of surprise and excitement appeared in the Scarlet King as he saw the refinement flame growing stronger and pushing to the next level. He had attempted to form a 5 revolution flame on his way back to Evernite from the Silent Forest, but had encountered many problems. Yet now, with Astrid's input, he advanced much faster. Just as the 4 revolution flame was about to finish its evolution, it began to grow unstable before finally dispersing. Although it was a failure, the Scarlet King did not stop smiling since he had significantly improved his mastery over the refinement flame. Astrid was just as excited and used her glasses to analyze everything.
This time, try to perform the saturation in stages, not reaching the extreme, but making it burst once it is about to destabilize.
The Scarlet King could not help but look at the young woman with wonder. What she was stating was a unique approach, one she must have figured out on her own using her intelligence and imagination. Not wasting time, the Scarlet King did as Astrid told him, and not only did it work perfectly, but it allowed the flame in his hand to gain a new color, becoming a 5 revolution flame. Once he reached this point, the Scarlet King did not simply stop and continued infusing life wave into it.
Make sure to condense the flame from its interior. Make it revolve in a 190 degrees axis in case of flux, which should compensate for the instability.
Astrid began to analyze the flame as it was being created and guided the Scarlet King on how to carry it out. Although following the guidance of a mortal might seem unwise, the Scarlet King did exactly as the young woman told him, making sure to internalize her insights as he carried on with his work. To his delight, by following Astrid's guidance, the Scarlet King could transform his newly created 5-revolution flame into a 6-revolution flame. The Scarlet King and the young Atrox woman did not realize it, but they were moving incredibly slowly, maximizing the time it would take until they reached her home as they continued their work. Thank you for listening to the Age of Chaos audio story. Pixie FM grows with listeners like you. Support the series by sharing it and join our Telegram for the latest updates. Episode number 427, 8-Revolution Flame. Like before, the Scarlet King attempted to immediately transform that 6-revolution flame into a 7-revolution flame, but while he managed to improve its power, it grew unstable and faded. The Scarlet King and Astrid looked at each other with a solemn light in their eyes. They began to discuss all sorts of mathematical formulas and chemical equations to fix the problems and improve the conversion efficiency while keeping the flame stable. After nearly an hour and reaching a consensus, the Scarlet King formed a refinement flame again, getting a 7-revolution flame without a problem and channeling energy into it. Everything went well, but once again, it trembled before dispersing. Your next episode number is on Freewib novel. It was the second time the Scarlet King failed to evolve the 7-revolution flame to the next level in a row, but he was not disheartened since he was closer this time, and after discussing with Astrid how to improve, he strived once again. Luckily for the Scarlet King, he did not have to waste wave crystals since the Gluttony module gave him all the energy he could need. The duo saw how the 7-revolution flame came to be once again and how this one grew stronger and stronger. Astrid guided during crucial points, and after much effort, the Scarlet King evolved it into an 8-revolution flame. Pure excitement could be seen in the eyes of the duo, but all good things had to come to an end. While they walked extremely slowly, they had been advancing for nearly 10 hours and finally reached Astrid's home. The young Atrox's eyes released a flash of disappointment as she saw her house, and she stared at the Scarlet King for a moment before extending the golden book toward him.
I can lend it to you. I am sure you will give it a better use than I do.
The Scarlet King's eyes narrowed as he saw that. The golden book was the sole reason he had approached the young Atrox, and it was why he came back today, but he shook his head.
Keep it, analyze all you saw today and try to develop new insights that can help me in the future with the information in the book. Here, you can have this as well.
Astrid was surprised to see Kine rejecting the book and handing the refinement flame to her. She still had the 9-revolution flame from before, but this one was different since she was involved in its creation.
I will accept it. I hope we can talk again soon, and I will do my best to improve my understanding of the art.
After saying those words, Astrid took the sphere with the 8-revolution flame and turned around. However, just as she was about to enter her home, she stopped and turned toward Kine.
When forming the 9-revolution flame, keep the conversion and condensation vector at a ratio of 2:1. I am sure it will improve your chances.
The Scarlet King smiled as he heard those words and saw the woman vanish. While the golden book was helpful, the insight and guidance from Astrid were even better. Now that was over, he turned around and flashed back to the central plaza, but had moved away from the castle just a few thousand meters when he froze, and his eyes narrowed as he looked into the sky. In the sky above the Scarlet King was an Atrox with blue armor that seemed to be made of oceanic mineral, and his aura was truly overwhelming, unleashing a pressure that seemed capable of crushing mountains as if they were a bunch of dried leaves.
I must say that your instincts are top-notch, young man, to have detected me after unleashing but a fragment of my force.
The Scarlet King's eyes narrowed as he stared at the man in the sky. He had detected the man long ago, as this one followed him from Astrid's home, but it would have been suspicious if he reacted too fast. After all, he was only an early wave champion, and the Atrox seemed to be someone with a foot in the divine ascension realm.
What can this envoy from the Inferno demon race do for a senior of the Atrox Immortus Empire?
The Atrox man's eyes narrowed as he heard the words of the Scarlet King, as they had several implications. If he were to attack or do something that could involve harm to Kyne, it could very well provoke a significant intercontinental incident.
It seems that what they say about the Hell Clan is true. You are truly good with your words. Don't worry, I don't intend to do anything foolish. Of course, that is on the assumption you don't do anything to harm my daughter.
The Scarlet King stared into the man's eyes and could feel a certain resemblance with those of Astrid, and by the look of it, this one was her father.
My intentions are clear. I am just fascinated by the art of tribulation enhancement, and Astrid seems happy to help me. Nothing else is happening between us.
People can be irrational regarding their families, especially fathers with their daughters. Hence, the Scarlet King was careful with his words, making it clear to the powerhouse that nothing ominous or sinister was happening. The Atrox stared at the Scarlet King for a long time before his eyes began to glow with a silver light that carried a small ember of fire.
Young man, I have faced great enemies and led millions into war and death, gaining the respect of my peers and honor from my race. Yet I have failed as a father as I cannot help my daughter. She will only live a normal lifespan of a few hundred years at most, and I will do everything in my power to ensure those years are full of happiness and safety.
The silver light in the Atrox's eyes burst with power as he uttered those words, making clear their level of conviction. Thank you for listening to the Age of Chaos audio story. Pixie FM grows with listeners like you. Support the series by sharing it and join our Telegram for the latest updates. Episode number 428, A 9 Revolution Refinement, I. The Atrox uttered no more words as he turned around, flashing back to his home. After the Scarlet King saw the man's ego wave, he immediately adjusted the level of threat of this one to that of God's. Even though he had yet to fuse his soul into his sacred organ, his willpower was already evolving deep into the divine ascension realm. Interesting. While the man was a threat, the Scarlet King also saw an opportunity. While that person would kill him if he harmed Astrid, he couldn't help but wonder what this one would do if he helped her. The Scarlet King's smile returned to his face as he returned to the central plaza, and instead of returning to the Magma Castle, he made his way out of Evernite. No one questioned him since this was not the first time he had left the city, and he was not a prisoner or anything like that, so he could do whatever he wanted within the confines of the sector. Once the Scarlet King was out of the city's walls, he rose to the sky and flashed into the silent forest, vanishing among the trees. Not even a minute had passed before 3 individuals followed him, hiding their auras and making sure not to draw attention. The trio that left after the Scarlet King were all Wave Kings, and the one leading the group was none other than Janiro, the god who had been waiting for him at the city wall to finish the job that Orphan and the others had started. Due to his devious behavior, Marshal Damos fired Janiro, severing his income and putting him in a tough spot with all the people he was doing business with. The employer who gave him Kyne's contract made it clear that he would have to take care of the young man, or that losing his job would be the least of his problems. Janiro had already directed all his rage and blame for his current situation toward Kyne, so he was more than happy to take care of the young man, especially if that would help smooth things over with the people of the underworld. Despite Janiro's questionable work ethic, he was not a fool and knew that Kyne was a genius by the way he could stop a Wave King's momentum, so he brought help. 3 Wave Kings to take care of a Wave champion should be more than enough. Just as that thought crossed Janiro's mind, his eyes widened as Kyne's presence suddenly vanished. He looked to the other 2 Wave Kings by his side, and they were also shocked as they did not understand what was happening.
I assume you 3 were looking for my disciple.
Utter shock appeared in the eyes of the 3 Wave Kings when they heard a cold voice and noticed a man with a red mask appearing behind them. Janiro's instincts screamed with terror as he saw that red light in the man's eyes and felt he was in the presence of an absolute monster. The idea of fighting immediately faded from his mind, and right now, he only wanted to escape. Unfortunately for the Atrox, before he could even take a step, the Scarlet King burst his essence wave and flashed forward, appearing right before him. The idea that an essence cultivator would purposely diminish the distance with an astral cultivator was ridiculous, especially if they were a rank apart, yet it happened. A chance. Realizing they were right next to each other, Janiro couldn't help but think that maybe running away was not necessary, and he could end the man with a blow. Yet, the Scarlet King's palm struck his chest before he could fire an attack. The palm strike had 0 strength, and Janiro barely felt it, but to his shock, that blow seemed to channel a unique force into his body, reaching his heart and freezing his blood flow. His blood suddenly freezing generated an overwhelming feeling of suffocation, so it was not surprising that Janiro fell to the ground and couldn't move. The other Wave Kings saw that and attempted to run, but the Scarlet King was too fast, striking the chest of both and freezing their blood flow, paralyzing the trio in less than 5 seconds. The Scarlet King saw the 3 Wave Kings immobilized on the ground and smiled as he saw the might of his palm strike once he harnessed the power of the Law of Blood. He could have easily knocked out the trio using his Ego Wave, but he wanted to see what the Law of Blood could do after its evolution to the Law Fragmentation stage. Even without a Saint Technique's guidance, the Law's power did not disappoint.
I needed test subjects for my experiment, and I am happy to have some volunteers.
That was the last thing Janiro and the other Wave Kings heard before a powerful ego wave invaded their minds and left them unconscious. Janiro and the other Wave Kings opened their eyes and found themselves on the peak of a massive mountain. Before them stood the man with a red mask, and in his hand were 3 spheres with revolving flames, each with 9 colors. The trio did not know the meaning of the flames, but if someone who understood tribulation enhancement were to see them, they would be shocked. And that shock would turn into true and absolute awe if they were to know that the man had begun his path less than 2 months ago. The Scarlet King smiled as he saw the 3 9 revolution flames. He had followed Astrid's advice, and after less than 2 days, he evolved his 8 revolution flames to the next level, achieving the peak of the Grand Tribulation Enhancer rank. Read latest chapters at Freeweb Novel. Janiro and the others had not woken up on their own. The Scarlet King allowed them to regain consciousness, since the chances of success would be better if they were awake, and used their minds to help assimilate the energy into their bodies. Of course, the fact that they were awake did not mean they had control over their actions, as the Scarlet King focused on one of the Atrox Wave Kings, and the body of this one moved on its own, jumping into the refinement cauldron. Thank you for listening to the Age of Chaos audio story. Pixie FM grows with listeners like you. Support the series by sharing it and join our Telegram for the latest updates. Episode number 429, A 9 Revolution Refinement, It. The Atrox was terrified and did not know what was happening until he heard the voice of the man in the red mask.
Use all your will to assimilate the energy that will begin to revolve around your body. If you succeed, I will let you leave, but failure would mean your body will explode like a balloon full of blood.
Janiro and the other Wave King also heard the man's words, and they saw how he deposited one of the spheres with a 9-colored flame into the cauldron before closing it. The Scarlet King's eyes burst with focus as he pushed his mind to its peak and released the 9 revolution flame, triggering the enhancement. Immediately, the flame covered the Atrox's body, but he felt no pain. Just as he wondered about the effect of it, shock appeared in his eyes as an immense amount of energy flooded into his flesh and blood, so powerful that he felt it would make him burst.
Focus.
The Atrox heard the voice in his mind and did as told, using his will to help assimilate the energy into his flesh and blood, ensuring the process could continue. Minutes began to pass, and the man's eyes began to glow with excitement as he felt every part of his body experiencing quality improvements. Experience tales at Freeweb Novel. Unfortunately, that thrill did not last for long, as less than 30 minutes after the refinement began, the Atrox started to lose control, and the waves of energy flooding into his body were too much for him to contain.
Boom.
Janiro and the other Atrox Wave King saw how the refinement cauldron trembled after an explosion echoed, and they could imagine what had just happened. The Scarlet King frowned, not because of the man's death, but due to the failure. Everything went well, but as we passed the 80% mark, the energy flow grew much more potent, to the point that it became too hard to keep under control. The Scarlet King closed his eyes for an entire hour as he went through the experience before opening them and looking at the other Wave King next to Janiro. The man trembled with fear, but he could do nothing as his body jumped into the cauldron before a sphere with a 9-revolution flame was put in.
Your friend failed because he grew too complacent. Push your mind to the limit and do not lose focus for a second if you want to survive.
Those words were only half right, but the Scarlet King wanted to establish the thought that by pushing himself, the man would survive, and by the look of resolution in the Atrox's eyes, it seemed to have worked. Once again, the Scarlet King pushed his mind to the absolute peak as he went through with the enhancement. He crossed the 80% mark this time, but just as he was about to complete the 9-revolution refinement, the energy flow in the Atrox's body grew unstable. Save me. Boom!
The Atrox shouted those words before his entire body burst, leaving a gory mess inside the refinement cauldron. The plea of mercy from the Atrox meant nothing to the Scarlet King. He was utterly emotionless with people outside of his life matrix, not to mention that even before he embraced order, he was always ruthless with his enemies and those who tried to do him harm. After another hour of reflection and understanding, the Scarlet King's eyes turned toward Janiro. By now, the terror in the man's heart was overwhelming, but just like his friends, his body moved on its own into the cauldron.
My skills have improved, and I am fairly certain that success will be achieved if you do your part.
Janiro heard those words, and while they could be a lie, he chose to believe them since he had no other option other than to push forward, doing all in his power to assimilate the flow of energy. The 9-revolution flame flooded the interior of the cauldron. It covered Janiro's body before triggering a reaction from the world's energy, making it circulate across his body with overwhelming power. Janiro's eyes were fierce as he pushed himself harder and harder, using every ounce of his willpower to drive the energy through his flesh and blood. The Scarlet King's eyes narrowed as he felt the way the energy flowed through the Atrox's body. When facing certain death, some people break apart, while others cling to the slightest thread of hope, and it seemed that this Atrox was of the second kind. Personally, the Scarlet King did not care what thoughts crossed the man's mind, but he was happy to see that the resolution in Janiro's heart and mind helped the process. He also pushed his mind beyond its limit as he guided the energy flow. After an hour, a sense of fatigue appeared in his eyes, but he just clenched his teeth and carried on.
Boom! A new burst echoed inside the cauldron, but this one was much less powerful, and it was not due to Janiro's body blowing to pieces. A burst of energy emerged from the Atrox's flesh and blood after enduring a 9-revolution refinement. The lid of the cauldron opened, and Janiro emerged from it. There was a sense of wonder in the man's eyes as he felt how his body had changed. It felt stronger, more durable, and faster, but it was much more than that. The only way the Atrox could explain it would be the difference between the state of a body before and after 3 years of intense hard work. Every system in his body and how it reacted was significantly better than before. It worked as a flawless machine, erasing much of the damage it had endured over the years and drastically improving its foundation. Just as Janiro was analyzing his body, so was the Scarlet King, but his analysis was much more powerful as he used the pseudo-atomic analysis tool. Thank you for listening to the Age of Chaos audio story. Pixie FM grows with listeners like you. Support the series by sharing it and join our Telegram for the latest updates. Episode number 430, a 9-revolution refinement, EI. Scanning target, scan of target completed, name Janiro. Race, Atrox Immortis. Path of power, astral rebirth, early wave king. Wave talent, initial tier 8, middle tier 8. Stats: strength 65, 467, 7. Agility 60, 262, 1. Vitality 70, 272, 9. Astral wave 67, 472. Blood rebirth, golden blood stage, pseudo-mercury blood. Astral blood saturation 2%. The Scarlet King was somewhat disappointed by the physical improvement that a 9-revolution refinement could have on a Wave King. Yet, that disappointment was immediately replaced by awe and wonder as he saw how the enhancement pushed the blood rebirth stage forward. An astral rebirth cultivator, needed to achieve the golden blood stage to evolve into a wave king, but those who do it at this level would have a tough time evolving beyond the early stage. Still, many of them do it since reaching the Mercury blood stage is truly difficult, and the status of a wave king was extraordinary, so a lot were content with it. There were ways to improve your blood rebirth after becoming a wave king. Nevertheless, the resources needed were so precious that even Apotheosis Realm masters would covet them, so most golden blood wave kings never evolved beyond the early stage. Who would have thought that tribulation enhancement could be so precious? It failed to show its power on Wave Beast since this one lacks sacred organs, but now I can see its true power and purpose. The Scarlet King's eyes glowed with thrill and excitement as he discovered the core power of tribulation enhancement. It was not the improvement in raw physical stats, but the repairment and evolution of the body's foundation. Extremely powerful lineages improve the body's ability to capture life wave, enhance your physical stats, and make it easier to strengthen your foundation. Still, it did not reverse the flaws left behind as you advance too fast to the next stage. Therefore, no matter how good of a genetic coder the Scarlet King was, he could not fix flaws in someone's foundation with a wave virus, but he could do it with tribulation enhancement. Oh, and it seems that now my AI chip module can detect astral blood saturation as well. The term astral blood saturation was not foreign to the Scarlet King, since that was the next talent marker in the astral rebirth path of power. After becoming a wave king, an astral cultivator would alter his blood cells, specifically their mitochondria, the energy core of a cell. It would allow the trillions upon trillions of blood cells in the body to act as tiny energy pools. Once you reach 50%, it will grant the astral blood ability, which would improve your body's offensive and defensive power exponentially. Someone who failed to reach the Mercury blood stage would find it almost impossible to push the metamorphosis beyond 10%. After analyzing all the data, the Scarlet King focused again on Janeiro, and the Atrox began to tremble as he felt those red eyes on him. The improvement of his body only made the fear in the Atrox's heart toward the man grow even more potent.
You said you would let me live. Oh, that I was lying.
The way in which the Scarlet King spoke showed just how little he cared about what Janeiro or anyone else thought about him. For a Master Vada, lies and deception were meaningless and could not affect your mind or heart.
However, killing you would be a waste, especially with what I am going to do next.
Just as Janeiro thought his life was over, a new ray of light appeared, and he stared at the man with the red mask in silence. Then, an intense red force field began to invade his mind. Janeiro was smart enough to understand that resisting would mean death, so he shut down his mental defenses and allowed a red ego mark to materialize inside his brain.
Go and capture 30 peak wave champion beasts and 3 king beasts.
Janeiro was confused by the task, but he did not hesitate for even a second before flashing into the forest, pushing his mind and body to the limit as he was ready to perform the task. The only thought on his mind was to do all in his power to please the demonic figure and remain alive. As Janeiro left, the Scarlet King took a meditative position as he released his ego wave, tracking control of the life wave in the air and channeling the one emerging from the sky flame into his hand, generating new 9 revolution flames. It did not take long for Janeiro to return with a king beast and 7 peak wave champion beasts before flashing back into the silent forest in search of Ma. The Scarlet King took control over the wave beasts and began to perform revolution refinement on them. As he completed the enhancements on these beasts, he could not help but frown. The problem was not that the enhancement was difficult, on the contrary. While the Scarlet King still failed sometimes, the process was much more straightforward than with the life form that had sacred organs, and while it worked to refine his techniques, it would not help him improve his skills to the next level. In the end, after 5 days, the Scarlet King was able to perform tribulation enhancement on all the beasts. Of the 30 wave champion beasts, 26 survived, and all 3 wave king beasts succeeded. The creatures did not know what was happening or why this humanoid was helping them grow stronger, as that defied the notion of everything they understood since humanoids were supposed to be the enemy. Just as the Scarlet King had surpassed the boundary of racial prejudice against the dark races, He also evolved beyond the view of wave beasts as enemies. That was why those who survived were released back into the silent forest. Read latest stories on Freeweb Novel. When Janiro saw all those beasts marching back into the silent forest, he did not doubt that a struggle for power would emerge. Since they were now more powerful, those beasts would definitely aim for a higher stage in the food chain. Thank you for listening to the Age of Chaos audio story. Pixie FM grows with listeners like you. Support the series by sharing it and join our Telegram for the latest updates. Episode number 431, A 9 Revolution Refinement, IV. The Scarlet King looked at the last of the 9 revolution flames in his hand before a decisive light emerged in his eyes. He jumped into the refinement cauldron with it before closing the lid. Janiro saw that, and a sharp look appeared as he silently hoped the monster would blow up.
By the way, I have left a subconscious command in your brain. If I die, you will blow yourself up, so pray for my success and keep an eye on the surroundings.
Shock and horror appeared in Janiro's mind when he heard that voice in his mind, and he immediately began to look around, ready to protect the cauldron. The Scarlet King almost burst into laughter as he saw the man's behavior. The truth was that he was in no real danger, as he could always use the enhancement module to improve his chances of success to 100%. No longer bothering with the outside world, the Scarlet King starred his clothes and released the 9 revolution flame from the sphere, making it flood the interior of the cauldron as it coalesced on his body. In a few seconds, the Scarlet King felt the world's energy flooding his body, reaching every cell of it, improving not only his flesh and blood, but also his meridians, neural pathways, immune system, and even his sacred organs. The energy revolved with more and more strength as the Scarlet King pushed it across his body, improving the flow and assimilation. It was hard and forced his mind to the limit, but after an hour, a smile appeared on his face as he felt his body grow stable again, and a feeling of complete synergy between his biological systems flooded his mind and soul. The cauldron lid opened, and the Scarlet King emerged from it with a smile of satisfaction as the AI chip module analyzed his body. Scanning vessel, scan of vessel completed. Name, Cain Lorifa. Race, Godslayer humankind. Path of power, astral rebirth, middle wave champion, essence evolution, middle wave champion. Lineage, true Avernus lineage, maximum purity. Wave talent, initial tier 9, initial tier 9. Read the latest on Freeweb Novel. Stats: Strength 53 855 1. Agility 31 132 0. Vitality 61 463 0. Astral Wave 35 236 1. Essence Wave 31 233 0. Blood Energy Astral 47 648 3. Blood Energy Essence 39 641 2. Blood Rebirth Golden Blood Stay. Main Law Mastery Law of Blood, Low Law Fragmentation. Secondary Law Mastery Law of Darkness, Low Law Fragmentation. Note 1. Wave virus inside the vessel enhanced wave talent by 28.1%. Note 2. All systems of the vessel's body had improved. There is also a fractional improvement in the condition of the rebirth heart. A wide smile appeared on the Scarlet King's face as he saw how his attunement with the Law of Darkness improved to the Law Fragmentation stage. As for the Golden Blood stage, it remained the same. He expected such a thing since he had been far from the Mercury stage before his astral rebirth path was crippled. However, the most shocking and exciting part for the Scarlet King was the fact that his rebirth heart showed signs of improvement thanks to the Tribulation Enhancement. Does this mean I can use the Tribulation Enhancement to fix my rebirth heart? The Scarlet King's eyes glowed, and he immediately commanded the system to do the calculations. According to the data analyzed, the vessel's rebirth heart would obtain a complete recovery after undergoing a 21 revolution refinement. A complicated expression appeared in the Scarlet King's eyes as he saw that. He was still very far from creating a 21 revolution flame and much less from perfecting a 21 revolution refinement. Although he could use the system, the cost would be 3M Destiny Foss, which was more than he currently had, and even if that were not the case, using all his DF, leaving him completely drained, would be extremely dangerous. Had it not been for his plentiful amount of Destiny Phos during the events of the Aja State, he would not have been able to access the intercontinental teleportation formation, and the Blood King would have killed him. In the end, the Scarlet King chose to focus on his essence evolution path of power, as there was still a lot of time to fix his rebirth heart in the future without any real drawback to his cultivation. After finishing with the enhancement and deciding the path forward, the Scarlet King stared at Janiro for a moment before waving his hand and taking out the Tier 1 biogenetic chamber.
Get in.
Janiro recognized the genetic chambers of the Legio Eldritch race, and while he was a little confused, he followed the command of the masked man. The Scarlet King did not waste time and began to work on the genome of the Wave King, using the Life Trent bloodline Wave virus to grant him an Apotheosis realm lineage. A sharp light appeared in his eyes as he saw how easily he could manipulate Janiro's genome.
My skills as a genetic coder have already surpassed the 4-star Saint genetic coder, reaching maybe 5 or 6 stars, the realm in which a genetic coder can flawlessly manipulate the genome of an Apotheosis realm master. 7 stars is the limit of the Saint rank, and I will progress to the Divine rank after that.
The fact that the Scarlet King could analyze all that while performing genome evolution was a testament to how much he had advanced this last year. If the people of the Genetic Coda Association were to see him now, they would not be able to express with words just how monstrous his talent was. After all, the Scarlet King was only 18 years old and had already reached a level that would take hundreds of years for other geniuses to achieve. Janiro emerged from the Tier 1 biochamber less than an hour after getting in, and his eyes were full of wonder as he felt his body growing more robust and his cultivation base seemingly improving, pushing towards the next stage. He immediately turned to the masked man, and his eyes held a mix of fear and reverence. Thank you for listening to the Age of Chaos audio story. Pixie FM grows with listeners like you. Support the series by sharing it and join our Telegram for the latest updates. Episode number 432, Killing a Grand King Beast. The Scarlet King noticed the look in the man's eyes, but he showed little concern. Janiro, Old River, Blue Crow, and all the others had something in common. They were all chess pieces in his mind, and their feelings and goals mattered very little as long as they followed his instructions.
Before I go.
A meaningful light appeared in the Scarlet King's eyes as he generated a new 9 revolution flame and took slaughter and blood nails from his heart. Tribulation enhancement could also be done on artifacts to improve their power. Actually, that was the primary purpose of enhancement, since there were very few people crazy enough to do it on the body of a person, much less themselves. The Scarlet King put the natural holy weapon into the refinement cauldron with the revolution flame and triggered the enhancement. As soon as the flames covered the weapon, the world's energy began to flood into them. As expected, regulating energy flow into an artifact was much easier than in a body, so the Scarlet King succeeded without a problem. When he opened the lid and took the weapons out, he felt they not only had an extremely sharp aura, but the improvement they proportioned to the essence wave he sent into them increased drastically. That would make his attacks more powerful and diminish their drain on his energy pool.
Let's go.
The Scarlet King rose into the sky and flew toward the deepest part of the silent forest. He had given Old River and the others 2 more weeks until their meeting, and he planned to use this time to enhance his strength as much as possible and master the 3rd level of the demon blood god Phantom.
Bomb.
Shockwaves that could match a nuclear weapon spread across the sky and earth of a massive mountain range in a desolate zone. A humanoid not more than 2 meters tall, covered in shadows, was facing a 300-meter-tall monstrous raven with several eyes on its body and covered in a poisonous fog.
KIE.
The endless poison raven released a mighty cry as it rose into the sky, waving its massive wings and unleashing a tempest of poisonous fog toward the Scarlet King. A sharp light appeared in the Scarlet King's eyes as he saw that poisonous fog. He knew even with his vitality, it could be deadly. After all, he was facing a Grand King Beast. His hand moved in strange patterns, and immediately The upper body of a demonic draconian avatar materialized in front of him just as his figure melted into shadows. The Dark Blood God Phantom technique levels were named Dark Claw, Blood Fang, and Demonic Phantom. At the third level, Demonic Phantom, the spell would gain the power to threaten Apotheosis Realm Masters as the force of the avatar improved exponentially. Demonic Phantom unleashed its dark domain, but did not remain steady as the Scarlet King controlled it, making it clash against the poisonous miasma that fell from the sky. A storm of darkness and poison flooded the sky for a few moments before the Grand King Beast and Demonic Phantom flashed toward each other, clashing with so much strength that the shock waves they unleashed could level entire cities. Continue reading at Freeweb Novel. The Demonic Phantom used its claws to get hold of the endless poison Raven. The mere contact with the Grand King Beast's skin made its body rot, but it was an avatar of essence wave and blood energy that harnessed the power of the laws of blood and darkness, so it felt no pain and aimed its blood fangs at the enemy's neck. Shock appeared in the endless poison Raven's eyes as it saw how the enemy could remain so calm in contact with its poisonous skin, but it did not lose focus. Just as the Demonic Phantom was about to bite down on its neck, it revolved its entire body, using the centrifugal force to push the dragon away before blasting it with another wave of poison fog. The Scarlet King's eyes narrowed as he looked at the scene from the shadows. He felt the damage on the Demonic Phantom, forcing him to drain even more of his energy pool to fix it before sending it back to battle. The Demonic Phantom and the endless poison Raven continued clashing in the sky, and while the Grand King Beast suffered significant wounds, it still had the upper hand. It seemed that the Scarlet King's energy pool would drain before the creature's stamina, forcing this one to run. A sharp light appeared in the Scarlet King's eyes as he saw the state of the fight. He took a deep breath as the power of the Sunseed burst, flooding his body with two streams of golden force, one bright and full of life, and the other dark and full of power. Radiance of life and radiance of power were the two skills born out of the Sunseed, and their goal was to enhance the Scarlet King's body's physical power and regeneration abilities. Never were they supposed to improve external spells, since that was not the battle style of an Astra cultivator, but now things were different. Using the Empyrean Sun visualization technique, the Scarlet King found a way to use those torrents of powerful golden force to adapt to his essence evolution path of power. First, the streams of golden force flooded the evolution core, where they mixed with the essence wave. From there, the Scarlet King used the power of the secret organ and sent the dark and bright golden flames into the Demonic Phantom. The Demonic Phantom was in the midst of its clash with the endless poison Raven when its entire body began to tremble, and bursts of bright golden and dark golden flames overflowed its figure.
Roar.
Along with that monstrous roar, the Demonic Phantom grew nearly double in size and flashed with overwhelming power toward the Grand King Beast. The endless poison Raven was shocked by the sudden burst in the power of its enemy, but before it could do something, the Demonic Phantom grabbed hold of its body, and this time it could not shake it off.
Chaos.
Thank you for listening to the Age of Chaos audio story. Pixie FM grows with listeners like you. Support the series by sharing it and join our Telegram for the latest updates. Episode number 433, Enhancing His Forces.
Chaos.
A scream of pain emerged from the endless poison Raven as the Demonic Phantom's fangs buried into its body, flooding its bloodstream with darkness that destroyed its inner organs. Although there was immense pain in the endless poison Raven's eyes, it was still a Grand King Beast, and its vitality was immense. It gathered all its life wave to fight back, but before it could do that, a massive shadow coalesced above its head, taking the form of a humanoid. The Scarlet King made sure the Demonic Phantom kept the Grand King Beast paralyzed as he burned what little remained from his ego wave and summoned the power of the Sundering Concept, firing a sharp arc of shadows toward the Grand King Beast. The endless poison Raven could not block the arc of shadows that pierced its eye and reached into its brain, making it tremble as the life of its body faded. When the Scarlet King saw that the endless poison Raven was dead, he waved his hand, dispersing the Demonic Phantom. Although the Grand King Beast had an immense amount of blood inside its body full of vitality he could use, there was an even greater purpose for its copse. The Scarlet King took control of the Grand King Beast and left it on the ground before putting a hand on its chest, sending waves of blood energy into it.
Thumpy.
After consuming nearly all of the blood energy left in the Scarlet King, the heart of the endless poison Raven began to beat again. The creature was still dead, as its brain suffered lethal damage and its soul dimension collapsed, but through the law of blood, the Scarlet King could keep its blood flowing, drastically diminishing the beast's decomposition. A cold smile appeared in the Scarlet King's eyes as he felt how powerful the poison of the Grand King Beast remained even after its death, and was sure it would work perfectly for his plans. The Scarlet King carefully put the endless poison Raven into his space ring, where its toxins could not harm anything, before gazing into the distance. Janiro was fighting a late King Beast, and while he had suffered severe injuries, the creature was on its last leg. After the Revolution refinement and his new lineage, the man managed to push his cultivation to the middle wave king, and it seemed that he was not at the bottom of the level either.
Oh,
With a feral cry, Janiro punched the belly of the beast, managing to break into its stomach before releasing waves of sharp branches that punctured the vital organs and killed the creature. Although the Atrox had difficulty regulating his breath, there was a smile on Atrox's face as he managed to defeat the late wave beast, a feat he would have found impossible to achieve less than 2 weeks ago. As for the wounds, they would not be a problem thanks to the Life Trend lineage's regeneration abilities. The Scarlet King saw the man's battle power, but he was not impressed at all. It was just slightly above his current cultivation base, something that was mediocre in his mind. Actually, the relationship between the cultivation base and battle power being equal was very common, especially in the upper ranks. Not everybody was a monster like the Scarlet King who could touch upon the apotheosis realm while being a wave champion.
let's go.
The Scarlet King said nothing else before he and Janiro flashed into the distance, heading to a particular mountain. Old River, Blue Crow, Red Hawk, Spectre, and Ghoul were all waiting inside the fake mountain with solemn expressions. They were smart enough to understand that the man with the red mask would not join Dark Hand but take control of it, and they would be part of the force that would do it. The group knew they had no other choice but to oblige, not to mention that while they were terrified of the man with the red mask, they were also in awe of his power and abilities. Thanks to his help, all of them were able to improve their power, with their cultivation base nearing the next stage and their battle power already at the late wave king stage.
Tap, tap.
The sound of steps drew the group's attention, and they saw the man with the red mask walking into the room. Behind him, there was another middle wave king. Spectre and Ghoul's eyes narrowed as they felt the same bloodline running through their veins in the man. The Scarlet King did not say a word and simply waved his hand, taking the refinement cauldron from his space ring before starting at Old River.
Take out your armor and get into the cauldron. Waves of energy will flow through your body. Make sure to use all your mind and will to push it forward. If it goes out of control, your body will explode, just like it happened to the friends of our new comrade.
Read latest stories on Freeweb Novel. Old River and the other Atrox eyes widened as they heard that, and they turned to Janiro, who nodded to the group, making it clear what failure would entail. Old River could not help but feel fear as he heard the words of the Scarlet King, but there was nothing he could do other than follow the man's guidance, expecting to survive and become even stronger than before. He took off his Atrox bio-armor and jumped into the cauldron before clenching his teeth and pushing his mind to the limit. The Scarlet King silently nodded as he saw the resolution in the old Atrox. He chose Old River first because he was the oldest and had the strongest will, which would make the assimilation of the world's energy much smoother, improving the chances of success. After pushing his mind and focus to its peak, the Scarlet King sent a 9-revolution flame into the cauldron and closed the lid before setting the flame loose, triggering the 9-revolution refinement. Thank you for listening to the Age of Chaos audio story. Pixie FM grows with listeners like you. Support the series by sharing it and join our Telegram for the latest updates. Episode number 434, Poisonous Scheme I. Seconds become minutes as waves of the world's energy flooded into the refinement cauldron, coalescing into Old River's body and revolving around it, improving every cell. Red Hawk, Blue Crow, Spectre, and Ghoul watched solemnly at the cauldron since they knew they would be next. Even if Old River were to perish, that would not deter the man with the red mask from experimenting with them.
Boom.
A small blast echoed from inside the refinement cauldron after nearly an hour. Just as the four Atrox imagined Old River's body had blasted to pieces like a balloon full of blood, the lid opened, and a figure emerged from it. Shock and surprise appeared on the faces of the Atrox when they saw that Old River was not only fine, but also seemed much younger now, no different than a middle-aged man. Old River was just as surprised as the others as he felt how every biological system in his body had improved drastically, helping him regain some of his youthful vigor. But even more impressive was the state of his evolution core. Old River's evolution core had crystallized entirely a long time ago. While the new bloodline improved the speed at which he could absorb life wave and his mastery over the laws, it did not directly improve his cultivation base's potency. However, after the refinement, a lot of the impurities of his evolution core were expelled, allowing this one to revolve with greater momentum.
Incredible.
Read New Adventures at FreeWebNovel. That was the only word Old River could come up with as he saw the effect of the colorful flame on his body and cultivation. When Red Hawk, Blue Crow, Spectre, and Ghoul saw the effect of the flame on Old River, the fear they felt vanished, replaced by a burning sense of desire. Who would not want greater power and the chance to become a god? The Scarlet King was happy to see that the other four Atrox were in peak condition now, having shaken away the fear. Everything should go fine in their current mental state.
Red Hawk. Yes.
Not wasting a second, Red Hawk took out his bio-armor and jumped into the cauldron, his eyes bursting with red light as he pushed his mind and will to the limit, ready to obtain even greater power. By the end of the day, all 5 Atrox had undergone a 9-revolution refinement, and there was nothing but wonder and awe in their hearts as they felt how easily their energy flooded through their flesh and blood, and how their cultivation base burst with power and vitality. However, focus immediately returned to their eyes as they felt the gaze of their leader on them. The Scarlet King analyzed the power of the 6 Atrox and nodded as they satisfied the requirements for his plans.
Old River, tell me about gatherings of Dark Hand that involve the presence of Dark Mask.
Old River and the others clenched their fists as they heard those words. It seemed that the time to fight had come.
Dark Mask is only present in the annual gathering, where the upper echelon of Dark Hand meets to report their current progress and dealings with other dark factions and pay tribute to his figure. The last one was 3 months ago.
The Scarlet King softly nodded. Even with the help of the AI chip module, he could not gather much information about Dark Mask, and it was clear that the man was cautious. That was actually one of the reasons he chose that person as his target. If the Scarlet King wanted to set a trap, the gathering would be the best choice. Not to mention that if everything went well, he would kill 2 birds with 1 stone.
9 months is too much. Is there another type of meeting that requires Dark Mask's assistance?
Old River frowned as he heard that question, but he did not dare to keep any information secret and spoke.
In case of the accusation of treason between members of the upper echelon, there would be a trial with Dark Mask acting as the judge and a few selected upper echelon members as the jury. However, that is extremely dangerous since if you fail to provide defining evidence, the accuser's head would roll.
A small smile appeared on the Scarlet King's face as he heard those words, since he could use that information.
The place where that trial would take place, will it have defensive mechanisms? Yes, a scan force field will inspect every space ring for signs of life, and a jamming signal that can interfere with the correct work of any explosive device.
The Scarlet King was not surprised by those security measures, but they would not be a problem for the plan he had in mind.
How long until the trial is in place after the accusation? It would not be less than 7 days, at most 2 weeks.
The Scarlet King nodded and told Old River to give him the coordinates of where the trial should occur before leaving the 6 Atrox, only to return 5 hours later.
Old River make an accusation of betrayal against a member of the upper echelon of Dark Hand. I don't care who, I just need to get Dark Mask in that place.
There was no surprise for any of the Atrox as they heard that command, since they had already expected it.
Can I freely choose the target of the charge?
The Scarlet King's eyes narrowed as he heard that question. Anyone present during their attack against Dark Mask would be a witness they would have to silence, and it seemed that Old River wanted to take care of a particular individual.
I don't care.
Old River nodded with a smile and used his computer ring to present a charge of treason against another member of the upper echelon of Dark Hand who went by Silent Shadow. Not even half a minute after Old River put the charge in place, his computer ring began to glow as several people attempted to contact him, but he ignored all except for one message that arrived 10 minutes later. He extended his right hand, showing a virtual screen to everybody. Thank you for listening to the Age of Chaos audio story. Pixie FM grows with listeners like you. Support the series by sharing it and join our Telegram for the latest updates. Episode number 435, Poisonous Scheme, Dark Hand communicates. Old River has accused Silent Shadow of betraying the faction. The trial will take place 10 days from now in the Dark Hall at 9:00. Judge, Dark Mask. Juries, Golden Fist, Blood Claw, Poison Gem, Great Ocean, Dark Flame, and Final Echo.
10 days, that is more than enough. You 6 enhance your battle power as much as possible. If I succeed, you will get great rewards, allowing your cultivation base to reach the apotheosis realm. If I fail to kill Dark Mask, I will escape, and all of you will die.
A sharp light appeared in the eyes of Janiro, Old River, Red Hawk, Blue Crow, Spectre, and Ghoul. They were not surprised by those words since they fit their leader's personality. They are weapons. If they fulfill their purpose, their master will upgrade them. If they fail, they will be discarded without a second thought. The Scarlet King did not have more words for the group, and he went to a remote corner of the warehouse, where he took out the body of the Endless Poison Raven. The Grand King Beast's heart still worked thanks to his blood energy. The Tier 1 biogenetic chamber appeared shortly after and began to expand, growing large enough to hold the entire body of the Grand King Beast. As soon as the Endless Poison Raven was placed in the chamber, the Scarlet King began to analyze its genome. The amount of information was too much even for the Scarlet King to study in a short period of time, but he used the AI chip module to assist him. While the 6 Atrox were using every second to improve their power, the Scarlet King worked on the body of the Grand King Beast. As for what type of alterations he was doing to it, everybody would know in time. Old River stood in the sky above a large forest, and in the distance, he could see the presence of a giant volcano. This place was not special, as the amount of life wave in the air was little, and the wave beasts around barely reached the peak wave champion. No one would know it was the secret meeting place of a Tier 1 dark faction with the power to level cities in seconds. There was a solemn expression on the man's face as he gazed at the space ring in his hand. He understood the danger of what was going to happen, but had already delved too deep into the path of that monster, and there was no way back. Old River took a deep breath before injecting a vial into his neck. Immediately, his body began to tremble, and his face grew pale, but other than that, there was no significant alteration or anything people could discern just by looking at the man. It did not take long for Old River to reach the sky above the volcano, and a dense ash cloud covered his sight. He did not hesitate for even a second before diving down. The magma temperature was dangerous even for a wave king, but his essence wave could hold on long enough. Old River dived down for a few seconds before reaching the end of the lava and crossing into a dark metallic hall large enough to hold more than 100 people without a problem. A solemn light appeared in the Atrox's eyes as he looked to the ceiling and saw the floating magma that not only blocked all signals from the outside, but also scanned everyone and everything that came in contact with it. Not even the dimensions inside space rings were safe from its power. After a moment, and seeing that no alarm was triggered, Old River relaxed, and a smile full of pride appeared on his face as his eyes burned with white light. His eyes had a sense of purpose that he had not felt in a very long time as he was about to fulfill one of the greatest desires of his heart. There were only 5 minutes until the deadline, so Old River was the last to arrive, and he could see a group of Atrox with impressive armor at the edge of the hall, all of them speaking. Old River saw a young Atrox female with a slender complexion among the group. Unlike him, she was not using bioarmor. Instead, black artifacts covered her body entirely, but she did not hide her charming face with pointy ears and pale skin. As soon as Old River saw the woman, a flash of rage and killing intent emerged from his eyes. It had been long since this hatred had festered inside his heart, and now he could finally set it free. Silent Shadow's eyes narrowed as she looked to the ceiling, and her eyes gazed upon Old River. There was a flash of coldness in the woman's eyes as she stared at Old River, but it soon turned into a mocking smile, and she did not bother with him too long and continued to talk with the rest of the upper echelon of Dark Hand. Normally, seeing Silent Shadow talk so comfortably with the jury would enrage Old River, but he knew this was nothing but an elaborate play. HMPH, keep talking, you bitch. Soon, I will get my revenge. I want to see your smile when your entire body is rotting. Old River's killing intent burst, but it suddenly froze as he detected a figure descending from the floating magma. He was a man with a bursting vitality, donned in dark golden armor with a black mask covering his face, showing only his eyes that glowed with blue light. Immediately, Old River descended to the ground and bowed, and he was not alone since Silent Shadow and the rest of the Atroxes did the same. The reason was simple. That man was none other than Dark Mask, the leader of Dark Hand, an Apotheosis Realm master. Thank you for listening to the Age of Chaos audio story. Pixie FM grows with listeners like you. Support the series by sharing it and join our Telegram for the latest updates. Episode number 436, Poisonous Scheme, EI. Dark Mask's eyes were cold as he gazed at the members of the upper echelon of his faction. Without saying a word, he flew to the end of the hall and sat on a white throne, waving his hand to make the magma ceiling burn with heat even a peak wave king could not endure.
We are to address the accusation of Old River against Silent Shadow for the charge of betrayal to the faction. Everybody take your positions.
Silent Shadow and Old River stood 10 meters apart, each in front of a small podium, while the other Atrox that were part of the jury stood on the left and right of Dark Mask's throne.
Leader, allow me to express just how absurd this accusation is. I will never betray the faction which has done so much for me. Old River is a vengeful and spiteful old man who cannot get over the fact that I took a small treasure from him.
There was a charming smile on Silent Shadow's face as she glanced at Dark Mask with both lust and affection.
Bitch, due to your tricks and deception, I lost my entire family. You dare to say you only took a small treasure from me?
Old River lost control for a moment as the rage in his heart was too immense, but before he could say another word, a powerful blue force field drowned him, making his body tremble.
I will not allow disruption during the trial.
Dark Mask's eyes were cold as he stared at Old River as if the man was a pest he could not wait to get rid of, hinting at how this trial would go. After almost pushing Old River to the ground, he dispersed his ego wave.
Old River, present the evidence you have against Silent Shadow. If insufficient, you will be charged with wrongfully accusing an upper echelon member and dealt a proper punishment.
When Old River heard the way Dark Mask spoke, he silently shook his head as he compared this man's demeanor with that of the monster in the red mask. Dark Mask wanted his life, but went through this whole ordeal to make it seem fair. On the other hand, the man in the red mask would have taken his life regardless of what others thought of his actions. With a new certainty on his path forward, Old River took a space ring from his hand and showed it to Dark Mask and the jury.
All the evidence I need to prove Silent Shadow's betrayal is in this space ring. If Leader allows me, I will show it to you all.
There was no reason to deny Old River's request, so Dark Mask nodded. The next second, Old River walked as close as he could to Dark Mask and the jury and took out the corpse of a massive 300-meter-tall Grand King Beast before silently returning to his podium. Utter shock appeared in the eyes of the 6 jurors and Silent Shadow as they saw the massive beast and recognized it as an endless poison raven. Not only was it an extremely powerful Grand King Beast, but its poison was so deadly that even together, they would not dare to fight against it. Dark Mask was also surprised to see the Grand King Beast's corpse. Although he could defeat it, it would not be easy, and he was sure that Old River did not have the power to do it. Suddenly, Dark Mask's eyes widened as he felt vitality in the Grand King Beast's body, and its heart was actually beating.
Old River, what is the meaning of this?
Dark Mask's eyes were cold as he focused on Old River, again covering the man with his ego wave. He wanted to know how Old River obtained this living corpse and what other secrets the old man could be hiding. Right now, the trial and everything else went to the back of his mind. Old River could feel the dissecting gaze of Dark Mask, but there was not a single iota of fear in his heart. When you face the devil, how could a mere imp scare you? Dark Mask frowned as he saw how calm the old man was and could not help but feel that something was wrong. However, just as he was about to rise from his throne to question the man, his eyes turned to the endless poison Raven's corpse. As an Apotheosis Realm master, Dark Mask's perception was strong enough to notice how the cells of the endless poison Raven's corpse began to react in the presence of oxygen, growing volatile.
Look out.
Dark Mask tried to warn the other Atrox, but it was too late as the corpse of the Grand King Beast exploded the next second. Being closer to Dark Mask and the 6 late-wave King Atrox Jurors, they took the worst of the blast. The energy inside the body of a Grand King Beast was immense, and if all was used as an explosive, it could unleash a blast that could harm Peak Wave Kings, especially if the explosion was contained inside a closed space like the Dark Hall. Dark Mask's face contorted due to the rage as icy wings covered his figure. He had activated his holy weapon just in time to protect himself from the blast and conjured an ice wall to defend the jurors. Dark Mask was able to calm down when he saw that despite the power of the blast, his subordinates did not suffer any crippling injuries. Then his eyes burst with killing intent as he turned to Old River. The fire did not last long, but a dark miasma covered the entire hall, making sight extremely complicated. However, that was not an impediment to the eyes of an Apotheosis Realm master. Since the explosive Grand King Beast's corpse failed to kill him and the others, Dark Mask expected to see Old River terrified, but the old man looked straight into his eyes with nothing but disdain and serenity. Just as Dark Mask wondered about the reason for the old Atrox's confidence, his entire body trembled and his knees gave in, forcing him to kneel. A feeling of nausea and weakness assaulted him, and his eyes widened as he stared at the dark miasma left after the explosion. Poison. Thank you for listening to the Age of Chaos audio story. Pixie FM grows with listeners like you. Support the series by sharing it and join our Telegram for the latest updates. Episode number 437, Killing Dark Mask, I. The Scarlet King had altered the endless poison, Raven's molecular composition, to explode upon contact with oxygen, but that was just to spread its main genetic modification more effectively. The Grand King Beast's poison was transformed into a potent genetic virulent toxin that could infect someone just by touching their flesh. Immediately, Dark Mask used his essence wave to push back the poison and the law of ice to freeze the parts of his body that had been affected, stopping the spread while also freezing the air around him. As expected from an Apotheosis Realm master, he could handle the toxin incredibly fast, but the same could not be said for the rest of the Atrox in the hall. The 6 jurors and Silent Shadows were all vomiting on the ground and could barely move as the poison had already invaded their bodies, overcoming their immune systems.
Old River.
Dark Mask shouted with rage as he focused once again on the old man and saw him flashing toward the ceiling of lava. The fact that the old man was not affected by the poison did not surprise Dark Mask, since it was obvious this one would have taken an antitoxin before. Still, he was not afraid the Atrox could escape.
HMPH, your pathetic power is not enough to pierce the magma.
Just as Dark Mask shouted those words, a massive drill made from 3 different types of giant branches pierced through the ceiling of magma, caught Old River, and then pulled back. For a moment, Dark Mask was left speechless, unable to believe what he saw. The old man had come and taken out the body of a Grand King Beast that exploded, poisoning everybody in the hall. Then, a drill of giant branches pierced the magma and helped him escape. Even if he told someone about this, who would believe him? Dark Mask's first instinct was to pierce through the ceiling of magma and go after Old River, killing the man and everyone else. However, before his emotions could get the better of him, blue light flooded his eyes, and he was able to calm down. I have no idea how many people are on the other side or what kind of trap they had waiting for me. As expected from a man who had reached one of the underworld's higher echelons, Doc Mosk kept a cool head even as rage flooded his heart. He decided against chasing Old River until he knew exactly how strong the enemy was. Doc Mosk waved his hand, and the white throne where he usually sat moved to the side, revealing a teleportation formation.
Please save me, my love.
Just as Doc Mosk was about to enter the teleportation formation, he heard a pleading voice in the distance. Silent Shadows was looking at him with hope, expecting him to save her. Silent Shadow was sure she would win this trial despite the chance that Old River could manufacture evidence because of her personal relationship with Doc Mosk. Unfortunately for the woman, the man she expected to save her did not look at her twice before stepping into the teleportation formation and vanishing, leaving her alone as toxins rotted her body from the inside out. 30,000 meters away from the dock hall, a teleportation formation began to glow at the bottom of a dark swamp, and the next second, Doc Mosk appeared. There was a solemn light in the Apotheosis Ream Master's eyes as he couldn't believe that much of his faction's power went to waste just like that. He did not care even for a second about leaving behind Silent Shadow. The woman was just entertainment, and he did not have the means to save her, so it was only logical to leave her behind.
Old River, damn geezer, I will flay you alive, and I will kill all those that.
Before Doc Mosk could finish his monologue of rage, his eyes widened as he looked to the sky and saw the upper body of a massive beast. The creature resembled a demonic dragon, and its maws were wide open and full of powerful energy.
Dark Blood God's blast.
That was the last thing Doc Mosk heard before a cannon of blood energy and darkness fell from the sky with a power that matched nuclear weapons.
Thousand Wings Ice Dome.
Find more chapters on Freeweb Novel. Doc Mosk burned his energy, suffering a backlash to summon his most potent defensive spell instantly, generating several ice wings around his figure just before the blast falling from the sky landed on him.
The
blast of energy fell from the sky, unleashing an explosion that decimated the entire swamp and flooded everything for several kilometers with dark red flames. The Scarlet King watched the destruction from the sky with a cold gaze. He had been charging this attack for nearly 10 minutes while waiting for Doc Mosk to appear. When the Scarlet King scanned the dock hall, he discovered the hidden teleportation formation. Using the pseudo-multidimensional scan force field, he tracked down the other end of the teleportation formation. Based on what the Scarlet King had learned about the man, he knew Doc Mosk was paranoid and wouldn't engage in a fight without knowing the enemy's power. Of course, there was a chance that Doc Mosk would have chosen to blindly follow Old River, which would have meant death for him along with Janiro, Spectre, and Ghoul, but the Scarlet King was willing to take that bet. A sharp red light appeared in the eyes of the Scarlet King as he saw a winged figure covered in ice flashing in the opposite direction from his location. Get ready. Everything is going according to plan. After sending that message, the Scarlet King tightened his grip on Slaughter and flashed into the waves of destruction and flames left by his attack. Doc Mosk's golden armor and ice had fused, covering his entire body with mighty wings and a sharp and thick tail. While he could move extremely fast, the attack galvanized the left side of his body. These wounds only made it harder to suppress the toxins running through his body, and he knew he needed to flee. Damn it, who is that person? Doc Mosk cursed as he focused on the figure, with the red Mosk chasing after him. This focus left him vulnerable, allowing two figures covered in shadow to rise from the ground, each delivering a fierce punch infused with a massive amount of astral wave and darkness. Thank you for listening to the Age of Chaos audio story. Pixie FM grows with listeners like you. Support the series by sharing it and join our Telegram for the latest updates. Episode number 438, Killing Doc Mosk, Red Hawk and Blue Crow unleashed all their power in their punch, and killing intent burned in their eyes as they felt the ice breaking into pieces, allowing the darkness force and astral wave to reach Doc Mosk's chest with overwhelming momentum. Doc Mosk's eyes widened as he felt the double punch landing straight on his chest with a dark force and strength that wreaked havoc on his internal organs and sent him flying into the sky. Despite the damage, he clenched his teeth and focused on his ice tail, which slashed down with immense power on the duo. Red Hawk and Blue Crow could not dodge the tail and were sent flying away, bleeding from their mouths and with gaping wounds on their chests. Clearly, Doc Mask's power was on a whole different level. Although they survived, another strike like that could kill them. Doc Mask had barely regained control over his body when the demonic phantom descended upon him, its maws open and ready to swallow him.
Damn it.
Doc Mask could do nothing but forget about the duo as he raised his hand, generating an ice dragon head to clash against the demonic phantom.
Boom.
A powerful shock wave spread across the sky as the demonic phantom and the ice dragon's head clashed, but the former soon ripped the latter to pieces in less than a second. However, before the demonic avatar could reach its true target, an ice tail struck it on the upper side of its head, sending it crashing into the ground. Doc Mask showed no happiness in sending the demonic phantom away as the two Wave Kings who had struck him in the chest faded into shadows, and he immediately raised his left wing, focusing power on it to defend against a dark arc of energy.
Boom.
Another shockwave spread across the sky as the arc of shadow energy clashed with the ice wing. While it made a laceration, it could not pierce through, and the damage soon healed as a new layer of ice formed in the wing. The Scarlet King's eyes were cold as he saw how Doc Mask defended against his arc of energy and sent the demonic phantom crashing down with a single movement of the ice tail.
Those ice wings and tail, they are powerful holy weapons and will make a good addition to my armory.
Doc Mask's eyes were cold as he heard the voice of the Scarlet King, but he did not lose control. Instead, he raised his right hand into the sky, flooding it with his essence wave and generating hundreds of ice spears that fell with immense power and momentum. Even now, he can keep control over his emotions. Well, I expected that much. The Scarlet King's eyes showed nothing but calmness as the ice spears descended from the sky. Before the attack landed on him, the demonic phantom rose to the sky and shattered them before falling, gaining immense momentum on its way toward Doc Mask. Doc Mask's eyes were cold as his tail rose again, flashing toward the demonic phantom. He expected to send the creature flying away. Yet, just before the clash, bright golden and dark golden forces flooded the interior of the demonic avatar, making it grow larger and much more powerful.
BOOMMMMMMMMs.
A flash of surprise appeared in Doc Mask's eyes as he felt the power behind the claws of the demonic phantom growing powerful enough to equal his ice tail. The clash sent them flying away in opposite directions for hundreds of meters. It took less than a second for the demonic phantom to regain control and immediately flashed toward Doc Mask. Still, the Apotheosis Realm Master was ready, sending a giant spear of ice to the creature and conjuring dozens of ice claws. Doc Mask knew that the true enemy was the man in the red mask, but the pressure the demonic phantom exerted was too much to divert his focus. Had he not been severely harmed by the Doc blood cannon and the toxins in his system, things would have been much different. The Scarlet King's eyes did not leave Doc Mask as he controlled the demonic phantom, but that was not all he was doing. Suddenly, a sharp light appeared in his eyes as the Absolute Life Form system flooded his mind with information about the enemy. Hack successful. Scanning target. Scan of target completed. Name, race, Atrox Immortus race. Path of power, essence evolution, water tribulation apotheosis master. Wave talent, high tier 8. Stats, strength 62.6. Agility 59.2. Vitality 79.9. Essence wave 374.2. Main law mastery, law of ice, medium law fragmentation. The Scarlet King's eyes narrowed as he observed the stats of Doc Mask. Physically, the Atrox was not much weaker than an astral middle wave king, but his energy pool was immensely vast. Read New Adventures at Freeweb Novel. No wonder he is so strong. It's not just the holy weapon, but his law of ice has already reached the medium law fragmentation, giving him overwhelming striking force and defensive power. Destructive darkness energy began to cover Slaughter as the Scarlet King focused on Doc Mask and flashed forward. Although fighting from such a close distance would endanger his life, the Scarlet King knew that if he wanted to make his Shadow Ox powerful enough to threaten a Water Tribulation Apotheosis Master, he needed to fire from a closer range. Dark Mask felt the Scarlet King flashing toward him, and he immediately used his tail to contain the demonic phantom before using his right hand to conjure hundreds of small spears against the man. The Scarlet King's eyes narrowed as he saw those powerful projectiles. If he had mastered the second level of the flow, he could have read the energy patterns of the spells and easily deflected them. Still, since that was not the case, he was forced to use his Shadow Constitution to dodge most of the attacks before shattering the rest.
Shadow Slash.
Thank you for listening to the Age of Chaos audio story. Pixie FM grows with listeners like you. Support the series by sharing it and join our Telegram for the latest updates. Episode number 439, Killing Dark Mask, EI.
Shadow Slash.
Once he reduced the distance enough, the Scarlet King made his essence wave explode and sent a powerful arc of shadow energy enhanced by Darkness Force against Dark Mask.
Damn it.
Dark Mask cursed as he was forced to use his right wing as a shield, and while he could resist the Shadow Slash, the attack was so powerful that it immobilized him for a second. That was long enough for the demonic phantom to push the Ice Tail away. Without the tail, nothing could stop the demonic avatar's massive claw that came crashing down on the Apotheosis Realm Master. Dark Mask covered himself with his left wings, but the claw strike was so powerful that it sent him plummeting into the ground with immense force.
Boom.
The Scarlet King and the demonic phantom immediately dived down, going after the wounded enemy. However, just as they were about to reach striking distance, the eyes of the Scarlet King narrowed as he moved to the left while commanding the demon phantom to turn to the right. The duo did it just in time to avoid the hundreds of ice spikes that rose from the ground, which would have impaled their bodies. A cold light appeared in the Scarlet King's eyes as he landed on the ground and focused on Dark Mask in the center of that massive amalgamation of ice spikes. Had his instincts been a little slower, the attack would have shattered the demonic phantom to pieces and caused severe wounds to his body. Even though he had spent thousands of points on improving the speed at which the Sky Flame consumed the resources inside the demonic devourer dimension to drive energy into his body continuously, it was still not enough, and he could not allow the expenditure of reforging the demonic phantom. One strike. That thought appeared in the Scarlet King's mind as he flashed toward the center of the ice spikes fought from the right, while the demonic phantom did it from the left. Dark Mask saw how the enemy attacked from both flanks, and he clasped his hands inside the ice spike dome, making it burst, sending rows of spikes in all directions. The Scarlet King and the demon phantom shattered the ice spikes in their path as they approached the Water Tribulation Apotheosis Realm Master full of killing intent. Just as the Scarlet King was less than 200 meters away from Dark Mask, he shattered another ice spike and charged Slaughter with energy, ready to fire an arc of shadow energy infused with Darkness Force. Unfortunately for him, just as he prepared to fire that attack, his eyes widened as the Ice Tail came crashing on him from the side. The powerful weapon had hidden among the ice shards and was too close to dodge. The Scarlet King knew that if he took the Ice Tail head-on, it could be deadly since the weapon could easily shatter golden artifacts to pieces. Acting immediately, he turned to the side and unleashed all the power gathered in Slaughter against the tail.
Boom.
A powerful explosion of ice and shadows spread across the forest as the blade and the tail clashed, sending the Scarlet King flying away with blood leaking from his mouth and cracking the bones in his arms. A small smile appeared on Dark Mask's face as he saw the Scarlet King being sent flying away, but he could not lose focus as the demonic phantom had already appeared before him with its maws open and closing its fangs on him. Discover more content at Freeweb Novel. The Ice Tail was on its way back, but it would not be fast enough to counter the demonic avatar, so Dark Mask could only use his ice wings to cover above and below, stopping the maws from closing down and shattering him to pieces.
Crack.
Dark Mask heard the ice wings cracking under the pressure of the fangs, but they only needed to resist a second maw, and the Ice Tail would push the demon phantom away. Just as the tail was about to make its way back and give Dark Mask the upper hand. His eyes widened as he saw a figure rise from the shadow of the demonic phantom. The Scarlet King's eyes burned with red light as he used shadow teleportation to emerge from the Avatar's shadow, with Slaughter raised and charged with immense power. Dark Mask was shocked, but his eyes burst with blue light as he had not given up. He immediately reinforced the ice covering his body and mobilized the ice tail with all its energy. Stopping the sword strike was impossible, but he had already seen the power of the Shadow Arc and was confident he could survive. Unfortunately for Dark Mask, all that confidence faded as the Arc of Shadows that the Sundering concept had reinforced pierced the ice easily, penetrating his armor before severing his chest and inner organs. The Scarlet King felt a sharp pain in his mind due to overextending his ego wave, but the outcome was worth it. However, he did not lose focus even then, as he commanded the demonic phantom to protect him with its claw. The ice tail did not stop just because of the deadly wound on Dark Mask, but it did lose a lot of its power. So while it burst to pieces the Dark Claw, it was not able to harm the Scarlet King after this one blocked with the blade and only sent him flying away a few hundred meters. The Scarlet King lost control over his body but could still command the demonic phantom, and he sent a final signal. Dark Mask's body could not stop trembling as nearly every vital organ in his chest was ruptured.
Boom.
Before the Water Tribulation Apotheosis Master could do anything to reverse the situation, the demonic phantom's claws pummeled his body into the ground, breaking most of its bones, and finally, the light in his eyes faded away. Thank you for listening to the Age of Chaos audio story. Pixie FM grows with listeners like you. Support the series by sharing it and join our Telegram for the latest updates. Episode number 440, Reviving Dark Mask, I. The Scarlet King rose from the ground after a few seconds, and the demonic phantom vanished as the Blood Nails adopted a defensive formation around him. Shortly after, Red Hawk and Blue Crow appeared close to him. The duo was severely injured since that tail strike nearly overcame their defenses, but there was no damage to any vital organs, and their current vitality would allow them to heal after a few days.
Leader.
Your journey continues at Freeweb Novel.
Leader.
The duo bowed as they spoke to the Scarlet King, using the only moniker they could since, even now, they did not know the man's name.
Good job.
The Scarlet King gave a profound nod to the duo, being the first time he actually recognized them. Had it not been for their combined attack damaging Dark Mask's chest armor, his shadow slash might not have been able to pierce through it. The attack would have severely wounded the Apotheosis Realm Master, but this one could have retained enough strength to escape. No longer bothering with words, the Scarlet King closed his eyes briefly as he focused on the vitality and energy coming from the demonic devourer dimension, and took several drugs from his space ring to supplement his vitality. They will suffice until my ego wave recovers to the point I can use Radiance of Life. Once his condition was stable, the Scarlet King went to the corpse of Dark Mask, and a profound light appeared in his eyes as he took the man's computer ring before flashing away with the corpse, followed by Red Hawk and Blue Crow. After they were far from the battle zone and in a hidden cave, he stripped Dark Mask of all its artifacts, leaving the Atrox naked. A slight flash of surprise appeared on the Scarlet King's face as he saw that Dark Mask was such a handsome young man, and it seemed that he was not older than 300 years old. That was impressively young for Apotheosis Realm Masters, since these are usually thousands of years old. However, none of that mattered much to the Scarlet King as he sent the man's corpse into the Tier 1 biogenetic chamber. Red Hawk and Blue Crow did not know what was happening, but it was not their place to question their leader, so they just remained at the cave entrance, vigilant of anything or anyone that could come near. Nearly half an hour later, 4 figures flashed into the cave. Red Hawk and Blue Crow raised their guard, but they immediately relaxed as they saw that they were none other than Old River, Janiro, Spectre, and Ghoul. The 6 Atrox glanced at each other, and they all turned to the man with the red mask at the bottom of the cave. Through his wits and power, he thwarted a Tier 1 Dark faction and killed Dark Mask, a powerful Apotheosis Realm Master. Like the Godslayer humankind, The Atrox Immortus race respected strength and power, so regardless of their personal feelings toward the man, they had to admit he was an incredibly competent leader and a fearless and ruthless warrior. The Scarlet King noticed the looks in the Atrox's eyes. If their admiration made them better weapons, he was happy about it, but that was as far as his thought went. He stood in front of the Tier 1 biogenetic chamber for nearly 10 hours until the body of Dark Mask began to decompose, leaving all sorts of chemical components inside the chamber.
Old River, get into the chamber.
Before anyone could understand what was happening, they heard the man's voice again commanding Old River to enter the chamber. Although Old River was confused, there was no hesitation in his eyes as he followed the command, entering the chamber with resolution on his face. He had fulfilled his greatest desire, and the look of pain on Silent Shadow's face was still clear in his mind. The Atrox was free to follow a path beyond revenge, and if there was one person he was ready to follow, it was the man in the red mask. Their relationship was simple. If he did good, the man in the red mask would make him more and more powerful, but failure meant death. For someone like Old River, who had embraced the underworld, he could not ask for a better deal than that. The Scarlet King noticed the look of peace and resolution on Old River, and a small smile appeared on his face. This Atrox was the type of warrior needed for his longtime plans in Kronos. He did not need someone who loved or worshipped him, but a man who would follow his lead without hesitation and was ready to bathe himself in blood. Having already healed long enough and recovered his ego wave, the Scarlet King carried on with the genetic alteration on Old River. The other Atrox watched everything with attention and saw how Old River's figure began to change. He had grown more youthful after the 9 revolution refinement, but now his face was beautiful and young. A sense of shock appeared in the Atrox as they saw how Old River had become a perfect replica of Dark Mask, not just in appearance, since even his aura and bloodline were the same. The Scarlet King had analyzed Dark Mask's body thoroughly. After mapping his genome, he dissolved this corpse to gain the components to alter Old River, transforming the man into a near-perfect copy of the Apotheosis Realm Master. Old River emerged from the Tier 1 biogenetic chamber 5 hours later, and he could barely believe what he saw as he became a perfect copy of Dark Mask down to the most minute detail. The only difference was in his essence wave, since he was still a middle wave champion, but the new ice lineage was already improving that.
Take.
Old River only heard those words as the Scarlet King sent a Dark Mask, a strange draconic token, and golden armor toward him. Without hesitation, he put on the mask and the armor, imprinting them with his ego wave. However, pure awe and shock assaulted his heart when he focused on the draconic token.
Ice Draco Emperor.
Thank you for listening to the Age of Chaos audio story. Pixie FM grows with listeners like you. Support the series by sharing it and join our Telegram for the latest updates. Episode number 441, Reviving Dark Mask, It.
Ice Draco Emperor.
Find adventures at Freeweb Novel. That name resonated in Old River's mind as he realized the small draconic figure in his hand was a holy weapon with a saint cultivation technique engraved in it. After donning all the armor and putting on the mask, the other Atrox in the room couldn't help but feel a sense of awe as it seemed as if Dark Mask had come back to life. Old River was wise enough to understand the type of scheme the man with the red mask had in mind, but he couldn't help but frown. Appearance was just one factor in a person's identity, and even if he could copy the Water Tribulation Apotheosis Realm cultivation base, Old River couldn't hide the fact that he knew nothing about Dark Mask's personal life. As if reading Old River's mind, the Scarlet King began to speak.
I hacked into Dark Mask's computer ring during the fight, preventing it from self-destructing after the death of its master. I went through the logs and previous conversations of the man for the last 100 years and learned a lot about him, enough to trick most people. Of course, this would not be enough to deceive those who knew Dark Mask personally or had an intimate relationship with him, but that was also one of the reasons I chose him as my target. The man was paranoid and did an outstanding job, keeping his identity a secret to the point he had no real relationship with anyone in the underworld.
Pure awe and admiration appeared in Old River and the other Atrox as they heard the man's words. His methods, wisdom, and plans were astonishing. Every action he took seemed to consider its future repercussions. There was no way to describe this man other than a monster.
You will release a statement to the upper echelon that you were ambushed by traitors and got into a fight. You were able to escape but got severely injured and will be recovering in seclusion, something that the real Dark Mask would have done. For the time being, the secret force you have been honing for the last 50 years, Dark Fingers, will act as your proxy.
The Scarlet King's eyes turned to the 5 Atrox at the cave entrance, and they understood that their new identity would be the Dark Fingers, the secret force of the Dark Hand. A sharp light appeared in their eyes as they looked at each other. A Tier 1 Dark faction was a great power. If they were in control of it, the amount of wealth they could access would be mind-blowing. With their current wave talent, lineage, and foundation, they could carve a path to the peak of the Wave King rank if they got enough resources, not to mention that working for the Masked Monster would mean constantly improving their bloodlines and talent. The Scarlet King saw the burning greed and desire in the 5 and silently nodded as he expected that from them. Fear was a powerful weapon, but greed had a much greater range and could inspire a sense of responsibility and duty if applied well. However, while he was fine with tapping into the greed of those 5, the Scarlet King's eyes grew solemn as he stared at Old River, making the Atrox adopt a serious expression as he knew something important was about to happen.
I will send you all the information about Dark Mask, along with his psychological profile and pattern tendencies. Study it and internalize all that knowledge, mimicking not just his physical behavior, but also his personality, while you shed away your previous persona.
At this point, the Scarlet King's eyes burned with a mighty red light full of conviction that seemed capable of ruling over destiny itself.
Destroy Old River and allow Dark Mask to be reborn. If you succeed in your rebirth, I will make you a god and allow you to stand by my side.
Old River heard those words echo inside his mind as if it were the decree of a divine king and felt his entire soul trembling for a moment. A sense of purpose appeared in his eyes, one that was not even less than the desire for revenge against Silent Shadow, as he stared straight into the eyes of the Scarlet King and solemnly nodded. The Scarlet King nodded as he saw the profound light in the man's eyes and was sure he would be pleased with his choice. He then threw Dark Mask's computer ring to Old River.
I have put a back door in it, allowing me to see all the messages that arrive and answer them. I will be responding to them for the time being so they sound like Dark Mask, but I expect you to be able to fulfill that role soon.
Old River silently nodded as he put the computer ring in his hand. Right now, he was the perfect physical copy of the man who had pierced the ceiling of lava and was crushed by a demonic claw.
Regarding Silent World, although they will have questions, they will not bother us too much as long as we pay the tribute. Several upper echelon members perished, but the infrastructure is still there, so keeping things orderly will be no problem.
Old River solemnly nodded. Silent World was a Tier 0 Dark faction with over a dozen Tier 1 Dark factions under it, so as long as they get their cut, they will not be a real problem.
Leader, if they ask about the person that attacked me, how should I respond?
The Scarlet King couldn't help but show a small smile as Old River used the prefix
Me.
to refer to Dark Mask, making it clear just how seriously the man was taking the task he had given him.
If they ask, answer with the truth. It was a man with a red mask, bandages over his entire body, and a scarlet robe covering his figure.
Thank you for listening to the Age of Chaos audio story. Pixie FM grows with listeners like you. Support the series by sharing it and join our Telegram for the latest updates. Episode number 442, Horus I. The Scarlet King returned to Evernite after leaving everything in order with Dark Hand. Now that he controlled a Tier 1 Dark faction, finding information about intercontinental teleportation formations to return to Gaia would be much easier. Returning directly to his home was the primary path the Scarlet King wanted to take, but another option involved crossing the Narrow Sea to reach the Hyperion continent, home of the Deus Bahamut race. If the Scarlet King reached the Deus Bahamut race, he would not have to hide his identity and could request help from the Bahamut Titans. From there, getting to Gaia would be easier. Unfortunately, movement across the Chronos continent wasn't simple. While he could leave Evernite whenever he wanted, the same couldn't be said about the Saturn sector, as the borders of this one were highly regulated. As an envy from a different race, there were certain limits to Kyne's freedom. Although he could take on a new identity, anyone with the rank to move freely around Kronos was not easily supplanted. After all, the Eye of Gluttony could only work on people with willpower much weaker than the Scarlet King's. Just getting near the Narrow Sea was a significant task, not to mention that the area was in a constant state of war. If any Atrox without sufficient clearance got near the battlefield, they would be attacked without question, let alone an env from another continent. Explore more at Free Novel. Trying to cross the Narrow Sea by earth or sky without the proper clearance would be suicidal, unless the Scarlet King could fight off Divine Ascension Masters. There was also the option of waiting for the envoys to return to Atlas, and from there, make his way to Gaia. However, many things could go wrong if he reached a place where Kyne's real family was present. After all, Kyne's father was an archduke who had reached the Divine Ascension realm and had all sorts of abilities at his disposal. That's why the Scarlet King concluded that the best path forward would be to use the resources of the underworld to find a way back home. Dark Hand was poisoned and severely wounded before our fight even started, and yet he pushed me to the absolute limit, draining my energy pool and leaving me with severe injuries. My current battle power seems only at the bottom of the Apotheosis realm. Although the Scarlet King was somewhat disappointed in his current power, his achievements were incredible, having jumped more than an entire rank in battle power. Once the Scarlet King reached Evernite, he immediately headed to the central plaza where the teleportation formation was in place. He usually would have returned on the last day, waiting for the monthly gala, but this time was different. The Scarlet King appeared in the Magma Castle and noticed two towering members of the Abyssal clan guarding the gate. Half a year had passed since the envoys came to the Kronos continent, and a new group from the Inferno Demon clan had arrived. However, they were different in more than one sense. Not only were these new Inferno demons older, but they also came to discuss matters with the higher-ups of the Atrox Immortus Empire. As for their background, they were the children of the current emperor of the Inferno Demon Empire. The Scarlet King wasn't interested in meeting or socializing, but while he could ignore the rest of the envoys, drawing the attention of the Inferno Demon Imperial family by displaying contempt or indifference would be a mistake. So, he returned to the Magma Castle. The guards at the entrance glanced at the Scarlet King, but didn't say a word as he entered and made his way to the main hall. Once there, he saw all the envoys, including Kyne's brother, surrounding three figures. Two were members of the Hell clan, both females, and the last one was male and belonged to the Abyssal clan. Not only were they extremely handsome, but they were also bursting with power and vitality. All of them are peak wave kings, but I can feel how they are suppressing their cultivation to improve their foundation. Everyone released an aura much more threatening than dark mosques. The Scarlet King's eyes narrowed as he stared at the trio. He had appeared and would display a respectful stance to the Imperial family, but would ensure to keep a safe distance.
My brothers and sisters are always the center of attention, don't you think?
Unfortunately for the Scarlet King, while he wanted to interact the least possible with the Imperial family, things didn't go according to his wishes. His eyes widened as he heard those words, and he turned to a corner of the room where he saw a strange young man sitting in a chair and reading a dark book. While he had a towering body similar to a member of the Abyssal clan, his skin was red, and there were horns on his head, characteristic of the Hell clan. Not only had the Scarlet King not detected the man until he spoke, but his racial characteristics seemed to be a hybrid of the Hell clan and Inferno clan, something he had never heard or seen before. The only thing clear in his mind was that this person was extremely dangerous. The Scarlet King's ego wave immediately burst with power, allowing him to maintain focus and not break his facade as he stared at the young man with wonder and surprise.
Kyne Lorza humbly greets His Highness. I'm afraid I don't know your name.
The Scarlet King had obtained the entirety of Kyne Lorza's memories. Still, he was positive there was no information about a member of the Inferno Demon Imperial family with the characteristics of this man. A small smile appeared on the young man's face as he closed the book in his hand and stared at the Scarlet King.
It's not weird you don't know about me. After all, this is my first public appearance ever. I am the seventh son of the Dark Emperor, Horus Eclipsis.
Horus stood up from his seat and walked toward Kine until he stood right before him.
I have heard a lot about you, Kine. It seems that you've got an interesting master recently.
Thank you for listening to the Age of Chaos audio story. Pixie FM grows with listeners like you. Support the series by sharing it and join our Telegram for the latest updates. Episode number 443, Horus Ir. The Scarlet King immediately frowned and took a step back, displaying an expression of discomfort and mistrust. This reaction wasn't reflective of his current state of mind, but was appropriate for a young man like Kine when facing a member of the imperial family. Horus analyzed Kine's every move with a piercing gaze, and his interest dimmed as he saw the young man's response. He kept staring at Kine before closing his eyes briefly. His aura became more amicable and peaceful when he opened them again, and a tranquil smile graced his face.
There's no need to be nervous. I was just curious about the person who saved one of our envoys and took him as a disciple. He goes by the name Scarlet King, am I right?
The Scarlet King stared at Horus for a moment before softly nodding, still portraying the temperament of a young man unable to keep calm under the aura of a member of the imperial family.
I am always happy to meet interesting people. I wonder how easy it is for you to communicate with your master.
Find more chapters on Freeweb Novel. Horus's smile remained, but his eyes intensified, indicating that nothing but an honest answer would be allowed. After a few seconds of silence, and making it seem like he was having difficulty deciding what to do, the Scarlet King spoke.
I haven't seen my master since he took me as his disciple. He improved my bloodline, gave me a cultivation technique, and said we will meet again once I become a Wave King.
Horus's eyes grew sharp as he listened, and in the end, he nodded. The behavior that Kine described was expected from eccentric masters.
I see, then I guess I won't meet the Scarlet King during my trip. How unfortunate.
A flash of disappointment crossed Horus's eyes, but it did not last long as he turned to the trio that was chatting comfortably with the rest of the envoys. Immediately, the three members of the imperial family stopped speaking and walked toward their little brother. Horus didn't wait for them to catch up. He had already turned around and walked away, but just before exiting the main hall, he glanced at Kine.
By the way, you would have met your master near Mount Zuni, right?
A wave of shock assailed the Scarlet King's mind as he heard that question, as Mount Zuni was the nexus of the Azure King's intercontinental teleportation formation in Kronos. The fact that Horus knew about it had several implications regarding the Azure royal family and the organization, and the Scarlet King couldn't help but raise the threat level of this man in his mind. Luckily, his willpower was strong enough to hide the shock, and he only showed a confused expression before softly shaking his head. Horus observed Kine briefly before nodding and then left the hall with the other imperial children. The Scarlet King watched Horus's departing figure, feeling a strange sensation in his heart and mind. He felt a sense of defiance and a desire for competition against Horus, which didn't make sense as they had never met before. He is interesting, but also extremely dangerous. There were no more fitting words for Horus than interesting and dangerous. While the Scarlet King would be happy to learn more about him, just being near someone like that put his disguise in danger. If anyone discovered he was a Godslayer human, there was no way he would leave the Kronos continent alive.
Brother, who was that?
Jamal appeared next to Kine with an intrigued expression, voicing the question on everyone's mind. None of the envoys had detected that person before. Yet with a single gaze, he made 3 imperial children follow him like puppies.
That was the 7th son of the Dark Emperor, Horus. It seems he was a very secluded person and had never appeared in public before.
Jamal and the other envoys were surprised to hear this, clenching their teeth as they realized they had missed the chance to interact with such an important person. The Scarlet King had no reason to waste his time with the envoys now that the members of the imperial family were gone, so he nodded to Jamal before returning to his room. Once alone, he extended his hand and began to gather Life Wave, setting it ablaze. It didn't take long for him to form a 9 revolution flame, but he aimed to take the next step and create a 10 revolution flame, gaining the title of Saint Tribulation Enhancer. Forming a 10 revolution flame was incredibly difficult, requiring not just life wave but vitality. There were many ways to obtain vitality, the most straightforward being burning one's own, but the Scarlet King would not choose such a harmful path when there was already a stream of vitality being sent into his body. The Sky Flame could devour matter and energy, and if corpses were sent into it, it would fill the Scarlet King's body with vitality and energy, just what he needed to train in tribulation enhancement. The Scarlet King spent the entire day training, but after over 20 attempts, he failed to evolve the 9 Revolution Flame into the next level.
No wonder forming a 10 Revolution Flame is said to be a bottleneck.
As he remembered the Golden Book, another image popped into the Scarlet King's mind, eliciting a small smile from him. I wonder if she could help me again. I guess I'll find out soon. It was already time for the new monthly gala, so the Scarlet King dressed and left the Magma Castle. Just as he appeared in the Central Plaza and prepared to take a new teleportation formation to the gala, he noticed Astrid waiting for him there.
Hello, since neither of us is interested in the gala, what do you say if we simply skip it?
The Scarlet King appreciated the calm and firm demeanor of the young woman, which genuinely drew him towards her.
I think it's a great idea.
Neither of them said another word as they walked out of the plaza, and once they were away from the people, the young woman spoke again.
So how is your master?
Thank you for listening to the Age of Chaos audio story. Pixie FM grows with listeners like you. Support the series by sharing it and join our Telegram for the latest updates. Episode number 444, Saint Tribulation Enhancer, I.
So how is your master?
As he heard that question, a flash of coldness and killing intent appeared in the Scarlet King's eyes. It was the second time in the last few days that someone had attempted to get information about his
Master.
Regardless of the relationship forming between the young Atrox woman, as a master of order, he would show no hesitation if he detected any form of deception.
Why do you ask?
Your next read is at Freeweb Novel. The Scarlet King's voice was peaceful and revealed nothing of the ruthlessness and killing might inside his heart.
Oh, weren't you supposed to meet him after forming a 9 Revolution Flame?
Astrid stared at the Scarlet King with a confused expression as she remembered what this one told her when he showed the sphere with the Revolution Flame. The Scarlet King's eyes twitched as all the killing intent in his heart was replaced by embarrassment that nearly made him burst into laughter.
Unfortunately not. I spoke with Master through my computer ring, but he seemed to be in the middle of an important cultivation journey and could not meet me. He said I should keep working hard and wait for his call.
Astrid showed some disappointment in her eyes as she heard that.
I see, how unfortunate. I was hoping you could get his help on some inquiries, as I have hit a bottleneck in my theoretical understanding of the Revolution Flames. Oh, are you having trouble deciphering the chemical formulas for the 10 Revolution Flame?
The Scarlet King was slightly disappointed that the woman was also stuck at that point. But he couldn't blame her, since he found it hard to advance even with the innate talent given by the enhancement module.
Oh no, I adjusted the process to create a 10 Revolution Flame about 3 weeks ago. Although I was waiting for you to prove it, I am sure it will be fine. I am stuck at the 15 Revolution Flame. No matter how many times I go through them, there are minute details that prevent me from success.
Astrid softly shook her head as she explained her situation, and she immediately began to go through the chemical formula and mathematical equations to create a 15 Revolution Flame in her mind, which was good for the Scarlet King as it allowed him to hide the complicated smile on his face. The Scarlet King could barely understand the process of the 10 Revolution Flame, yet it seemed that Astrid was already making headway to the 15. Although there was a chance the woman could be lying, he knew her well enough to know she would not do something like that.
What do you say if we test your formulas? During the creation process, we could gain new insight that could be helpful for the creation of a 15 Revolution Flame. Yes, you are right.
Not wasting time, the Scarlet King took a 9 Revolution Flame from his space ring and began to send new streams of life wave and vitality into it.
Wait, first of all, don't send the life wave and vitality simultaneously. Do it in phases to maintain the flame's integral structure.
The Scarlet King had just started, and the young woman had already begun to correct his method. As expected, once he followed Astrid's advice, the flame grew more potent, and it was much easier to maintain it stable. Keeping focused, the Scarlet King continued improving the power of the 9-revolution refinement flame, following Astrid's advice and ensuring he internalized the knowledge. Ultimately, the flame dissipated before becoming a 10-revolution flame, but neither was disappointed. Going from theory to practice was a process, and while Astrid's advice was correct, putting them to work was hard. The Scarlet King sometimes took too long to apply the woman's advice, leaving flaws that led to failure. Still, practice makes perfect. As the duo continued working, the Scarlet King kept improving, and in less than 3 hours, a shining flame with 10 colors appeared in his hand. Astrid and the Scarlet King smiled as they saw the shining flame and grew excited and full of thrill. Both looked at each other and saw the desire to push forward. Following Astrid's advice and adjustments, the Scarlet King created an 11-revolution flame in a couple of hours and then carried on toward the next level. Although they made significant improvements, they reached Astrid's home before they could complete a 12-revolution flame. Usually, it was at this point they would each take their respective path, but the young woman stared at the Scarlet King for a moment before speaking.
Will you leave Evernight again and only return for the gala?
The Scarlet King stared at the woman for a moment. It seemed that she had been inquiring about him and knew about his patterns. After a moment, he softly shook his head.
I have already experienced enough battles for the time being. I will remain in Evernight for the next month to consolidate my cultivation and insights.
The Scarlet King was not lying. While fighting and constantly pushing oneself forward was important, it was also essential to rest from time to time and consolidate one's cultivation base and battle insights.
In that case, why don't you stay in my home? There is a guest room in the castle you could use. That way we could keep improving your skills.
Astrid's eyes were calm as she uttered that invitation, but she could not hide the flash of nervousness in her eyes. The Scarlet King stared at the woman for a moment as he heard the proposition. While he showed nothing, an internal struggle began to arise inside his mind. He had always kept his distance from the women, but if he were to accept, things would change, and she could very well make her way into his life matrix, something he had initially wanted to keep sealed during his time in Kronos. Astrid could not help but grow nervous with the silence, and just as she was about to speak again, trying to calm things, the Scarlet King made a slight bow toward her.
It will be my pleasure to accompany you.
Thank you for listening to the Age of Chaos audio story. Pixie FM grows with listeners like you. Support the series by sharing it and join our Telegram for the latest updates. Episode number 445, Saint Tribulation in Hansa, I. The Scarlet King raised his head the next second, and a meaningful light appeared in his eyes as he glanced at the woman, this time showing true feelings. He had not grown in love or anything like that, but allowed his mind and heart to create sentiments for her. It might be just friendship or something else, only time could tell. For the next month, the Scarlet King remained in Astrid's home. In the mornings, the duo would improve their abilities and create powerful revolution refinement flames. The Scarlet King would focus on his cultivation the rest of the day and night. The Scarlet King and Astrid were in a quiet room, their eyes showing complete focus as they stared at the flame, with 14 colors growing more and more powerful. The duo only took a week to create a 14-revolution flame, but the path to creating a 15-revolution flame was extremely complicated. After an entire month of trial and error, going through the formula over and over again, making adjustments, and tuning the final details, a wide smile appeared on the duo's faces as they saw a new color emerge in the flame. Through hard work and immediate effort, the Scarlet King and Astrid had managed to create a 15-revolution refinement flame.
We did it!
Astrid shouted with thrill as she saw the flame in the Scarlet King's hand. Not only were they able to figure out the correct attunements for the flame's formula, but they managed to go from theory to practice and create it. The Scarlet King kept his composure much better than the young woman, but he was equally thrilled. A 15-revolution flame would do wonders for his foundation and talent, making him one step closer to his goal of forming a 21-revolution flame and repairing his rebirth heart. A sense of fatigue assaulted the Scarlet King a second after seeing the flame with 15 colors. Now that he had finally achieved that goal, all the exhaustion came crashing down on his mind and body, forcing him to stop. Only then did the Scarlet King notice the day and hour, and he almost burst into laughter.
We are missing the monthly gala.
Astrid had also suffered from exhaustion since, while she only had to focus on the formulas, she was a mortal and did not have the bursting vitality of a cultivator. An amused expression appeared on the Atrox's face, since she did not really care about the gala either. However, just as the duo was smiling and relaxing, a serious expression appeared on the Scarlet King as he glanced at his computer ring.
Is there a problem? Not really, but the Inferno Demon Imperial family members are returning home. Oh, so soon. If I am right, whenever the Inferno Demon Imperial family engages in this sort of diplomatic procedure, they remain for nearly 6 months and return with the envoys after their year-long stay. It is weird for them to leave after only a month.
What Astrid said was right, which was why the Scarlet King found it so odd. There was no good reason for their travel to last so little, and he could not help but feel there was something more about it.
I will go to my room to rest. See you tomorrow. Oh, it is already late. I will also go to sleep.
The Scarlet King said goodbye to Astrid, and he could not help but feel there was something he was not seeing. For a moment, he thought of trying to hijack the travel of the Imperial family in order to return to Atlas and then make his way to Gaia. Nevertheless, as he thought of Horus' presence, he immediately discarded the idea. Once the Scarlet King reached his room, he took a deep breath and calmed his mind before going to bed, entering a deep sleep to rest his brain and body properly. Find more chapters on Freeweb Novel. The next day, the Scarlet King said goodbye to Astrid, but not before leaving with the young woman a revolution flame of every type they had managed to create, so she could inspect them and draw more analyses for the following levels. He had to return to the Magma Castle, as there was a small gathering to say goodbye to the members of the Imperial family. Just like the last time, he just wanted to make an active presence and not interact with anyone. Luckily, Horus was not keen on interacting with him this time. The young man stood in his chair reading that dark book, and whenever someone would get near him, he would only glance at them and they would back away. It went on like that for several hours. Finally, Horus stood up and left with his sisters and brother. The Scarlet King watched the members of the Imperial family leave with a frown on his face. While he was relieved that an enigma like Horus would no longer be present, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was off.
The Imperial family is truly striking, isn't it, brother? By the way, I have seen how you spent a lot of time in the Endless Forest, and I wonder if it would not be good for both of us to use this chance to test our combined strength against wave beasts.
Jamal spoke with a smile on his face. It seemed he was frustrated with the failure of the assassination and wanted to take things into his own hands. Normally, the Scarlet King would have found the man's behavior amusing and played along to distract himself for a while. Sadly for Jamal, he picked the worst possible time to try and play his childish games. The Scarlet King was incredibly bothered by being kept in the dark, so when he heard Jamal's words, he turned to him before speaking.
I wanted to talk to you. My master gave me something that could be useful for your cultivation, but there are too many eyes here. Let's go to my room.
Thank you for listening to the Age of Chaos audio story. Pixie FM grows with listeners like you. Support the series by sharing it and join our Telegram for the latest updates. Episode number 446, Saint Revolution Refinement, I. Jamal burst with excitement when he heard the mysterious master left something useful and followed the Scarlet King without hesitation. The duo left the hall and didn't take long to enter the Scarlet King's room. Experience new tales on Freeweb Novel.
So, brother, what did your master leave?
Jamia hadn't even finished his sentence when the Scarlet King flashed toward him, grabbing his neck and raising him into the air, slowly strangling him. Of course, Jamal attempted to fight back, but the grip of the Scarlet King was too strong, and an invisible force had invaded his body, stopping him from using any form of energy. The Scarlet King stared at Jamal as the young man struggled futilely to escape his grasp. Soon, the fight ended as the ego wave of the Scarlet King invaded the brain of the young genius from the Abyssal clan. The Scarlet King hadn't forgotten his oath to Kine when he took the young man's soul. He had promised to take care of the mastermind behind the assassination attempt and do his best to protect the young man's family, and he intended to keep it. Jamal's body began to tremble as the ego wave of the Scarlet King was rewriting his neural path and implanting all sorts of subconscious commands. Instead of just killing Jamal, the Scarlet King planned to brainwash him to the point where the Inferno demon would spend the rest of his life protecting Kine's mother and sister. Due to the intensity of the commands, Jamal would rather die than allow anything to happen to Kine's family, which works for the Scarlet King. It took him around 4 hours, but once he was done, Jamal looked completely normal, yet he was in a subconscious state.
Go to your room and rest. After you wake up, you will not remember anything.
Jamal nodded and left the Scarlet King's room before heading to his own room with the sole intent of resting. Having taken care of the nuisance, the Scarlet King left the Magma Castle and, in less than 30 minutes, was out of Evernite, heading at full speed toward one of the deepest parts of the forest where extremely powerful beasts inhabited.
Behemoth.
A massive explosion echoed across the forest as the earth trembled once the demonic phantom pushed a massive Grand King beast to the ground, resembling an enormous tree over 500 meters tall with a dry shell. The dead Trent had all kinds of wounds, but that didn't diminish its fighting will as it used its massive branches to try and push the demonic phantom away. Yet, before it could do that, the Scarlet King appeared above the car that held its soul dimension and pierced it with slaughter, killing the beast. Exhaustion appeared on the Scarlet King's face as he removed his red saber from the head of the Grand King beast and sent it into his demonic devourer dimension. The dead Trent was the 7th Grand King beast he had killed, and the reason for these fights was not to improve his battle might, but due to the input of vitality needed to create the Saint Refinement flames. The Scarlet King nodded softly, feeling satisfied, and rose to the sky, heading to the dark hall contained in the fake volcano. As soon as he appeared in the sky, he flashed into the magma, and it didn't take long to come out on the other side. The renewed Dark Hall immediately appeared in his sight, with Dark Mask sitting on the throne and the 5 Dark Fingers surrounding him. There were also rows of Atrox Wave Champions with distinct marks on their armor present. The Atrox Wave Champions were confused by the sudden appearance of the man with the red mask. They had come here by the order of the Dark Faction's leader, and their space rings were full of corpses of Wave Champion beasts. None of them understood what an Apotheosis Realm Master would need so many corpses for, but they were at the bottom of the food chain in Dark Hand, and asking too many questions could prove deadly. Before those Wave Champion Atrox could say a word, the Scarlet King's ego wave descended on them, and they soon fell unconscious. Dark Mask and the Dark Fingers showed no reaction to seeing the Wave Champions falling unconscious. Instead, they all rose, clasping their hands and performing a deep bow.
We welcome you, leader.
Dark Hand had already moved away from the throne, allowing the Scarlet King to sit as he watched the Wave Champions.
As you commanded, leader, we have gathered all the members of Dark Hand that have committed heinous crimes of the level of rape. I also commanded every one of them to bring as many Wave Champion beasts' corpses as possible, hinting that it was a secret test to boost their spirits.
The Scarlet King stared at Dark Mask and softly nodded, pleased with the proficiency and diligence of the man with the task. One of his many missions was to gather the worst of Dark Hand and make it so they brought a lot of corpses with high vitality. The corpses were obviously meant to generate the Saint Refinement flames. As for the Wave Champions, the Scarlet King would use them as guinea pigs to improve his abilities on Saint Revolution refinement. While the Scarlet King followed the path of order, that didn't mean he lacked a sense of justice. He would be more than happy to see all these depraved Wave Champions meet their end. With a wave of his hand, all the space rings appeared in front of the Scarlet King, and he gradually sent the Wave Champion beasts' carcasses into his demonic devourer dimension, using the energy generated by the Sky Flame to create more and more 15 Revolution flames. Dark Mask and the 5 Dark Fingers looked at the flames solemnly, imagining the kind of power such a refinement would grant them. Just a 9 Revolution refinement had significantly upgraded their potential and cultivation base. However, there was also a thread of fear since the more potent the flames, the harder it would be to assimilate the world energy this one would drive into their bodies and blood, and everyone was wary of what would happen if it failed. Thank you for listening to the Age of Chaos audio story. Pixie FM grows with listeners like you. Support the series by sharing it and join our Telegram for the latest updates. Episode number 447, Saint Revolution Refinement, I. The Scarlet King made 15 revolution flames for nearly 4 days until he had enough for all the wave champions. He rested for 6 hours before taking out his refinement cauldron once his mind was in peak condition again. With a single look, one of the wave champions jumped into the cauldron, and the Scarlet King deposited a 15 revolution flame before closing the lid and starting the refinement.
Boom.
A small burst echoed across the dark hall as the amount of world energy flooding into the refinement cauldron was overwhelmingly high. It soon began to merge into the body of the wave champion. A sharp look appeared in the Scarlet King's eyes as he drove that energy across the man's body, aiding the assimilation. However, he had been at it for less than 20 minutes before the Atrox exploded. The Scarlet King used a wave of dark frost to clean the cauldron before making another wave champion jump in and start again. This time, he advanced a few minutes more, but once again, the wave champion burst like a balloon full of blood. This pattern continued for nearly 10 hours as half of the wave champions burst to pieces. While the Scarlet King would be happy to see them die, that didn't mean he was fine with failure and was doing all in his power to succeed, learning from the previous experiments. Unfortunately, the difficulty of revolution refinement doubled with each level, so a 15 revolution refinement was 32 times harder than a 9 revolution refinement. It was no wonder that the Scarlet King would fail so many times despite his extraordinary talent. Still, the Scarlet King was not disheartened since every attempt brought him closer to success. Finally, on the 17th attempt, the refinement cauldron trembled just a little, and a shining light emerged from it as the Atrox wave champion emerged with a body that seemed immaculate. The Scarlet King couldn't help but smile as he saw the effect of the 15 revolution flame on the wave champion and set this one aside before commanding a new wave champion into the cauldron. The 18th wave champion was also a success, but the same couldn't be said about the 19th. In the end, of the 15 wave champions left, the Scarlet King completed 15 revolution refinements in 11, with only 4 failing, giving him a success rate of roughly 70%. It wasn't bad, but one had to consider that the other 30% meant a horrible death as your body burst from the inside out, spilling your guts everywhere. So, it was in everybody's best interest to improve that percentage. Dark Mask and the Dark Fingers stared at the wave champions who had experienced the 15 revolution refinement and were sure they would have an easy path to the Wave King rank if they had sufficient resources at their disposal. However, a red force field covered the wave champion before vanishing from the dark hall. Dark Mask and the Dark Fingers then saw how the Scarlet King's body burst with vitality and energy. The Scarlet King could work with murderers and thieves, but there was a limit to the filth he could tolerate, and those he could not stand were better used as manure. Vitality and energy overflowed the Scarlet King's body as he began to create 15 revolution flames. Eventually, all the wave champions and wave beasts inside his demonic devourer dimension yielded 9 additional 15 revolution flames. With these in hand, the Scarlet King left the volcano, accompanied by Dark Mask and the 5 Dark Fingers. It didn't take them long to reach the peak of a massive mountain. The Scarlet King released his ego wave into the distance, and 9 massive king beasts appeared before him in a few minutes. Dark Mask and the others adopted a battle stance as they saw the king beasts since they were not under hypnosis, but the creatures did not bother with them and only focused on the Scarlet King. Janiro's eyes widened as he recognized these wave beasts. They were the same ones that had survived the 9 revolution refinements. Most had been wave champions before, but they had grown stronger. However, what was most significant was the light full of wisdom in their eyes. Wave beasts grow more intelligent as they advance in ranks but remain acting according to their basic instincts. Yet, these were different. The Scarlet King also noticed the change and couldn't help but smile. He had returned to see if there was a meaningful change and gather more information, and the findings were extraordinary. The effect of the tribulation refinement on wave beasts was surprising. Unlike humanoids with sacred organs, it seemed to enhance the wisdom of these creatures.
I can use the power from last time on you again. There is roughly a 20 to 30% chance you will die, but if you survive, there will be an evolutive change in your nature.
All the king beasts stared at the Scarlet King, understanding the dangers but willing to take the risk. Their wisdom had grown enough to comprehend the perils, but as wave beasts, they could die any day, and the only way to protect themselves was by becoming stronger and wiser. The Scarlet King didn't waste more words and enlarged the refinement cauldron to hold the massive bodies of the king beast, starting with one resembling a winged wolf. The king beast showed no hesitation as it jumped into the cauldron, watching as a sphere with colorful flames was placed with it before the lid was closed. Then, the colorful flames were released, coalescing around its body as waves of world energy flooded its flesh and blood. It wasn't the first time the king beast faced this power, and now it was awake, so it could use its willpower to drive the energy, aiding in the assimilation. The Scarlet King's eyes were fiercely focused as he assisted the Sky Wolf's body with the assimilation process. Although the process was more straightforward with wave beasts than with Atrox, the overwhelming amount of world energy from the 15 Revolution refinement required everything from him. Read latest stories on Freeweb Novel. After nearly 2 hours, the refinement cauldron shook slightly, and a figure emerged. The transformation of the Sky Wolf was shocking. Its aura was overpowering and pure, but most striking was the powerful wisdom and intelligence in its eyes. Thank you for listening to the Age of Chaos audio story. Pixie FM grows with listeners like you. Support the series by sharing it and join our Telegram for the latest updates. Episode number 448, Late Wave Champion I. Dark Mask and the other Atrox stared at the creature, sensing it was something different. It was still a wave beast, but it seemed to be growing beyond that boundary, a truly shocking development. The Sky Wolf returned to its original position, bowing to the Scarlet King before remaining steady and unmoving. The Scarlet King nodded at the creature before turning to the next one, a king beast resembling a golden eagle. Like the Sky Wolf, the Gold Father Eagle entered the cauldron without hesitation. As night fell, a king beast resembling a semi-bipedal elephant emerged from the cauldron. There was a powerful sense of wisdom in its eyes after completing its Saint Refinement Revolution, and like the rest of its comrades, it returned to its original position. Of the 9 king beasts that arrived, 8 were still alive. One of them, a shadow spider, failed to assimilate world energy flow and exploded. While unfortunate, this outcome did not deter the other king beasts, who understood the risks of the process. The Scarlet King was satisfied. Although the procedure would be more complex with races possessing sacred organs, he was confident that his success rate had risen above 85%. After observing the king beasts, he turned to Dark Mask and the Dark Fingers.
Form teams. Help these king beasts secure new territories rich in energy and resources. In exchange, you will keep all the spoils from the battles and bring them to me so I can form Saint Refinement Flames for you 6.
Dark Mask and the Dark Fingers were surprised by this command and frowned. They wouldn't dare go against the Scarlet King's command, but working alongside wave beasts wasn't exactly practical. During the heat of the battle, the beasts might mistake them for enemies. However, they had no choice but to comply and nod, and the wisdom in the Saint Revolution king beasts gave them hope things could work well. After a slight bow toward the Scarlet King, the Atrox flew away with the Saint Revolution king beasts to regions where powerful king beasts resided. A meaningful light appeared in the Scarlet King's eyes as he watched the 2 groups march away. He was aware of the potential problems of fighting alongside wave beasts, but wanted to observe the results after these creatures had grown smarter and wiser. Once alone, the Scarlet King assumed a meditative position on the ground and rested for an hour before taking a mouthful of the tea left by the old stranger. He slowly swallowed it, allowing his body to burst with energy. Thanks to the Scarlet King's wave talent and fantastic resources, his essence wave improved exponentially fast with a very robust foundation. It was time to prepare himself for the next breakthrough, advancing into the late wave champion rank. Dark Mask, Janiro, Red Hawk, Blue Crow, Spectre, and Ghoul returned to the mountain peak 5 days after leaving with the Saint Revolution King beasts. They were exhausted, having fought continuously for the last few days. After finding their targets, they battled alongside the Saint Revolution King beasts. The Atrox had to admit that the battle style and wisdom of the Saint Revolution King beasts impressed them, resembling that of sentient humanoids. Although challenging, they won their battles and killed the 10 king beasts controlling a massive mountain range known as the Great Demon Claws, named for its demonic claw-like formations reaching toward the sky. However, the battles didn't end there. Once the Saint Revolution King beasts defeated the previous leaders, dozens of other king beasts attempted to overthrow them before they could acclimate to their new position. All 8 Saint Revolution King beasts worked together, fending off waves of enemies. With the assistance of the 6 Atrox, they managed to eliminate all their opponents, feasting on the meat of many. Per their agreement, Dark Hand and the Dark Fingers took most of the corpses with them as they returned with the Scarlet King. The 6 Atrox were approaching their destination when their eyes widened at the sight of the mountain peak, now enveloped in a dark, bloody fog with the Scarlet King at the center, seemingly lost in meditation. It was uncommon for someone to generate a reaction from the laws during a breakthrough, but to generate such a phenomenon while cultivating indicated an extremely high attunement to cosmic forces.
Form a defensive formation around the leader. No matter what, if anyone comes close to him, kill them without hesitation.
Dark Mask issued the command as he flew above the Scarlet King, activating his holy weapon, which manifested as ice wings and a powerful tail. While Dark Mask seemed to have developed a sense of devotion and faith toward the Scarlet King, the others still regarded him as a monster and followed him due to fear and greed. Still, regardless of their personal feelings, they immediately carried on with Dark Mask's command. Janiro, Red Hawk, Blue Crow, Spectre, and Ghoul formed a pentagram defensive formation around the Scarlet King. They unleashed their ego wave into the surroundings and heightened their perception, ready to attack at any moment with full power. The Scarlet King was not unconscious and would awaken if he sensed danger, but that would disrupt his enlightenment. Thus, it was preferable for him to remain undisturbed. He continued meditating, his eyes closed, deciphering the mysteries of the laws of darkness and blood. Experience new tales on Freeweb Novel. As the dark, bloody fog around him intensified, his evolution core began to tremble on the 7th day of his meditation. The essence wave within it grew more robust and revolved with greater synergy and order. The Scarlet King opened his eyes, his essence wave erupting with power, increasing the size and purity of his energy pool. He harnessed the insights gained from the laws, enlarging his energy pool and refining it further, noticing more crystal fragments forming due to the extreme density and purity of his essence wave. An hour later, his sacred organ stabilized, and his essence wave ceased its intense activity, allowing the Scarlet King to rest. Thank you for listening to the Age of Chaos audio story. Pixie FM grows with listeners like you. Support the series by sharing it and join our Telegram for the latest updates. Episode number 449, Late Wave Champion It.
System scan.
As soon as the Scarlet King sent the message, the Absolute Life Form system began its work, displaying an accurate measurement of his power. Scanning vessel. Scan of vessel completed. Name, Cain Lorifa. Race, Godslayer Humankind. Path of Power. Astral Rebirth Middle Wave Champion, Essence Evolution Late Wave Champion. Lineage, True Avernus Lineage, Maximum Purity. Wave Talent, Initial Tier 9, Initial Tier 9. Stats. Strength, 55.1. Agility, 32. Vitality, 63. Astral Wave, 36.1. Essence Wave, 33 right arrow, 45.1. Blood Energy, Astral, 48.3. Blood Energy, Essence, 41.2 right arrow, 50.3. Blood Rebirth, Golden Blood Stay. Main Law Mastery, Law of Blood, Low Law Fragmentation. Secondary Law Mastery, Law of Darkness, Low Law Fragmentation. Note 1. Wave Virus inside the vessel enhanced wave talent by 28.1%. The Scarlet King smiled as he observed the might of his energy pool. He felt that the law of blood was nearing the next stage, achieving a level of comprehension that would take a genius like the original Dark Mask hundreds of years to attain. He looked to the sky and nodded softly to Dark Mask before signaling everybody to approach him.
Congratulations on your cultivation progress, leader.
All 6 Atrox uttered those words simultaneously, and their eyes showed appreciation and admiration. However, the Scarlet King could sense which of them genuinely meant it and who only acted according to protocol. Of course, he did not care about the second type since he was not trying to make friends, but it was something he would keep in mind for future plans.
Hand me the corpses.
The Scarlet King did not waste his time with pleasantries and commanded the group. Immediately, several powerful wave beasts' corpses came to him, and he sent them all into the demonic devourer dimension. After his breakthrough, his body was overflowing with energy, allowing him to generate 715 revolution flames in a row without a problem. Afterward, he rested his mind for nearly an hour to reach his peak before taking the refinement cauldron and glancing at Janiro. Find exclusive stories on Freeweb Novel. Being the first to enter meant that your chances of death were higher, since with every trial the Scarlet King's abilities would improve, but there was nothing Janiro could do about it other than obey. The Atrox took out his bio-armor and jumped into the cauldron along with the 15 revolution flame. After that, the lid was closed, and the flame was unleashed, running around Janiro's body, igniting the response of the world energy. It was not the first time the Atrox had experienced this, and he knew that losing focus for even a second could mean death. So, his eyes burned as he used every ounce of his willpower to guide the energy flow, minimizing the amount of work the Scarlet King had to go through. The Scarlet King's eyes glowed with red light as he pushed his mind to the limit and continued with the revolution refinement. Surprisingly, his abilities seemed to have improved even more after his advance as a late wave champion, allowing him to finish in less than 3 hours without ever coming close to losing control. Janiro emerged from the cauldron with a smile on his face. Everything went even more smoothly than he thought, and he could feel the burning power coursing through his veins. The blockade that had stopped him from reaching the late stage was gone, and it was only a matter of time before he achieved it, along with a high percentage of astral blood. The Scarlet King stared at Janiro, and with the help of the AI chip module, he saw how Janiro's blood rebirth stage had managed to evolve into the Mercury stage. He wasn't fatigued, but he didn't continue with the next refinement right away as he was still wondering about the improved talent in Revolution refinement.
It must be my enhanced cultivation stage. The essence evolution path of power focuses on comprehending and controlling the world's forces, so it makes sense that I would better control the world energy with a higher cultivation base.
After handling that uncertainty, the Scarlet King turned toward Red Hawk, and the man immediately jumped into the refinement cauldron. The Scarlet King had expected the revolution refinement of the Atrox to be a trial and was prepared to see some of them perish. However, with his improved talent, he could complete the enhancement in all of them without any problems. Dark Mask and the other Atrox were filled with wonder as they felt the potency of their cultivation base and enhanced foundation. They were certain that nothing would stop them until they reached the apotheosis realm. The only thing that could limit them now was resources, but they were in control of a Tier 1 Dark faction, so that would not be a problem. The Scarlet King waved his hand, causing the Atrox to adopt a pentagram formation around him again as he focused on the lost 15 revolution flames. Now that he had perfected the technique, he would perform the Saint Revolution refinement on himself. After resting for half an hour and recovering to his peak, the Scarlet King jumped into the refinement cauldron and closed the lid before unleashing the 15 revolution flame. Immediately, the flames coalesced around his body, covering both inside and out, and it didn't take long for an immense amount of world energy to flood into his flesh and blood. The Scarlet King's eyes burned with red light as he controlled the revolving energy of the world around his body, ensuring it reached every corner before making it revolve again and again, assimilating more and more of it. An immense amount of world energy flooded into the Scarlet King's flesh and blood, generating an evolution of this one. Still, the true goal of that tremendous power was in his rebirth heart and evolution core. Hours went by, and the amount of world energy flooding into the Scarlet King's body kept rising.
Boodleum.
Thank you for listening to the Age of Chaos audio story. Pixie FM grows with listeners like you. Support the series by sharing it and join our Telegram for the latest updates. Episode number 450, Pseudo-Mercury State.
Boodleums.
A powerful explosion drew the attention of the Atrox, and many of them were shocked since they couldn't believe that the red-masked monster could have perished like that. However, what burst wasn't the Scarlet King but the Refinement Cauldron. It was a golden artifact capable of enduring golden flame refinement without a problem. Still, cracks began to form due to the constant Saint Revolution refinements, and finally, it could not hold on anymore. Luckily, that was not a problem since the flames were already fading, leaving only the flawless body of the Scarlet King in place. Of course, the Scarlet King had rearranged the bandages on his body before anyone could see his actual appearance. He opened his eyes, and a smile appeared as he stood up and analyzed his body.
System.
Scanning vessel. Scan of vessel completed. Name, Cain Lorifa. Race, Godslayer humankind. Path of power. Astral rebirth, middle wave champion. Essence evolution, late wave champion. Lineage, True Avernus lineage. Maximum purity. Wave talent, initial tier 9, medium tier 9. Stats. Strength, 55.1 right arrow 57. Agility, 32 right arrow 33.7. Vitality, 63 right arrow 65.2. Astral wave, 36.1 right arrow 37.7. Essence wave, 45.1 right arrow 47. Blood energy, astral, 48.3 right arrow 49.6. Blood energy, essence, 50.3 right arrow 51.6. Blood rebirth, golden blood stage right arrow pseudo-mercury state. Explore more at Freeweb Novel. Main law mastery, law of blood, medium law fragmentation. Secondary law mastery, law of darkness, low law fragmentation. Note 1, wave virus inside the vessel enhanced wave talent by 28.1%. Note 2, all systems of the vessel's body had improved. There is also a fractional improvement in the condition of the rebirth heart. The Scarlet King couldn't help but feel a sense of utter thrill in his heart as he saw the improvement the 15 Revolution flame granted. He didn't pay much attention to the stats since the true power of the Revolution refinement presented itself in his foundation. Despite his crippled astral rebirth path, his blood rebirth had reached the pseudo-Mercury stage, and he hadn't even become a late-wave champion in that path. If he managed to fix his rebirth heart, the foundation level he could reach by taking advantage of the next breakthrough would be shockingly high. In the Essence Evolution path of power, the Revolution refinement had allowed his attunement with the Law of Blood to break through to the next level, reaching the mighty medium law fragmentation. Even if it was the absolute bottom of the stage, it was a feat that divine geniuses found nearly impossible before becoming wave kings. There was also an improvement in his wave talent due to his enhanced law mastery and blood rebirth, along with the improvement of the wave virus, allowing it to reach the medium tier 9. That would make his cultivation speed soar once again.
My battle power should allow me to fight directly against a wind tribulation apotheosis realm masters now, without the need to depend on ambush.
The Scarlet King had no problem relying on ambush and traps against his enemies. After all, he was also a skilled assassin. But there would be times when he would have to face opponents directly since there wouldn't always be time for preparations. I guess there is only one way to truly know my battle power.
Dark Mask.
As soon as the Scarlet King uttered those words, Dark Mask appeared before him and knelt.
Is there any problem with the other dark factions?
Although the reclusion of Dark Mask made sense for Silent World, it significantly diminished the power of Dark Hand, and other dark factions would want to take advantage of that. Actually, struggles between Tier 1 dark factions were normal, and Tier 0 did not really care, as once a faction vanished, another would soon take its place. The underworld was no different than the world of wave beasts. The strong survived, and the weak became food. Right now, Dark Hand looks very appetizing for the other dark factions.
We have been facing problems from Dead Ocean. It is another Tier 1 dark faction under Silent World. They have infiltrated our domains several times. They have mostly been tentative strikes to test our strength, but once they realize we have no Apotheosis Realm masters in our ranks, we will have serious problems.
The Scarlet King nodded as he understood the current predicament of Dark Hand. After all, the new Dark Mask was only a Wave King, and it would be a long time before he became an Apotheosis Realm master.
Dead Ocean. From the data I obtained from the previous Dark Mask, their leader is a Wind Tribulation Master.
A flash of coldness appeared in the Scarlet King's eyes as he decided his next step. But before dispersing everybody, he had one more matter to attend to.
How did the special mission go?
Dark Mask adopted a solemn expression as he heard those words, knowing that the task was extremely important.
I have done as requested, leader, and tirelessly used the power of Dark Hand to search for information about an intercontinental teleportation formation. I have heard some rumors and am currently following leads, but there is nothing concrete yet.
Dark Mask didn't just speak words. He delivered a report with all the information he had managed to collect so far. The Scarlet King went through the data and nodded as he saw that the man had put a lot of effort into the task at hand.
Keep working. I will take care of Dead Ocean. Be ready to recover all the lost territories and gather as many of their resources as possible.
Dark Mask nodded, and after performing a final deep bow, he flew into the sky along with the Dark Fingers. Once alone, the Scarlet King went through the network using the AI chip module and began gathering information about Dead Ocean. It didn't take long for him to find a lead, and a cold smile appeared as he rose into the sky and flashed into the distance. Thank you for listening to the Age of Chaos audio story. Pixie FM grows with listeners like you. Support the series by sharing it and join our Telegram for the latest updates.